Good evening. Hello. We're going to call the meeting to order. We're going to call the CRC meeting of July 17th, 2023 to order. The meeting is now in order. We'll ask for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask Member Grimer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll and establish a quorum.
Member Weinsberg. Member Callan. Here. Member Arias. Member Wynn.
Here.
Member Chair Hardage.
Here.
Vice Chair Shira.
Here.
Member Grimer.
Here.
Member Baga.
Here.
Member O'Neill.
Here.
Member Staccato.
Here.
Member Adamson Prophet.
And Vice Chair, I will go first. My comments will be brief today. We're glad you're here. And secondly, we want to welcome our guests that are also watching us on Orange TV. Thank you all for taking your time out to participate in this very important committee meeting. Now, we have quite a few people that want to speak, and the cards have been compiled for me. So I know that some of you will be giving your time to other speakers to give them an adequate amount of time to explain your issue. If I should miss one of those and call your name, you're welcome to stand and just say, I yield my time, and name the person. And we'll be allowing 2 minutes to each person. But what I've decided to do is for the main speaker, I will actually ask them, a little bit out of order, but I ask them how much time they need so that we can start out with the appropriate amount of time, and our staff here can manage their time. So if someone would like additional time, we have also been flexible in that, but occasionally as chair, I will have to cut a speaker off if it actually gets a little bit too lengthy. But that will be the procedure, 2 minutes per speaker. The main speaker, I will ask them how much time they need, and we'll set the clock accordingly. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, we have 3 officials here today. We have our Mayor Demings. Thanks for coming. We have Commissioner Bonilla, and we have former Commissioner Mildred Fernandez. I'm going to ask all 3 of them to give us brief comments, first starting with our mayor. Commissioner Wilson, please rate. There she is. See her. Current Commissioner. Thank you.
Commissioner Hardage, thank you for the opportunity to address the group. I'm honored to be here. We have spent a lot of time in this room today. We had the Tourist Development Task Force meeting earlier today, the final meeting there. 3.5 hours, I think it was, all talking about the future of our great county. I'm here this evening, just primarily to listen to the dialogue. But while I'm here, because sometimes from these meetings I see various discussions that come up, and I wanted to give you, the Commission, the Charter Review Commission, the opportunity, if you had any specific questions for me, I'm happy to respond to those questions if there are any. If there are none, I'm just here like a fly on the wall to simply listen at the dialogue today. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Seeing none, thank you for coming, Mayor. All right. We have two sitting commissioners. We haven't done this before, but please, Commissioner Bonilla, comments, please. And then we'll have Commissioner Wilson, and then former Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you so much for giving me this time. I'm here because we have a lot of citizens from East Orange County area who is going to be here to speak. I also live in the east side, and I'll tell you for many, many years we've been fighting urban development sprawling into the rural east side. I'll tell you that, even when I was fighting the grow as a citizen back in between 2013 and 2016, I kept looking at the numbers, how much money is it costing Orange County to have this sprawl. And most recently, as a commissioner, we just did a whole study in the area of what roads need to be improved based on this, the growth that was developed there, and how we got actual numbers of how much it's going to cost, to build out all of those roads in order to cover the impact that the development is bringing to the area. That development paid about $150 million into the revenues of Orange County to help with those roads, but the total cost will be $400 million to improve those roads in order to cover the impact. And some of those ideas weren't even possible because it's just the way everything is developed out there with the environment, the river. It's just not possible to even develop all the ideas that were proposed in the study. In addition to that, what is possible isn't going to be enough to cover all the impact. It's going to be failing roads, people hardly moving. There's not going to be any way to ever cover the impact that that development is going to cause to the area. And so for many, many years, we've been asking, me as a citizen, the other people that live out there, asking for what Seminole County has just north of us, which is a rural boundary. I believe Seminole Commissioner Lee Constantine has actually come and spoken in front of you of the benefits that it has brought to Seminole County. And so Orange County is just asking for the same thing. And it's something that will make sure that we are not using taxpayer money to subsidize urban sprawl and also causing impacts that we just don't have the funding or will never have the funding or be able to cover those impacts. That you guys are doing. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Wilson, please. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I'd like to address the turn this one. Yes, could you provide a copy of your study for us to look at? Because one of the things I've found in the past, that new development over a period of time does pay for itself, and consequently, the new people coming in, whether they buy an existing home or move into an apartment complex, or they're paying a pro rata share of the right-of-way improvements for the community and out of the taxes when they just get here. So I remember before we had impact fee, and the county put all these roads in with the taxes that we had, and now they've shifted some of the monies to different things and put an impact fee, and now you look to the impact fee to cover the immediate needs for the community. And over a 20, 30-year period of time, part of their taxes every year will go to the Public Works Department to do their improvements. So I just wanted to look at the study and make sure that you counted all the revenue from different places to make your argument that, development doesn't carry its own weight.
Yeah, no, we've had plenty of board discussions on it and studies, but
I
will give you two studies. One that was done at that time when that development was approved. I'll give you the new study that shows all of the improvements that are needed and the cost of it, so you can compare the two. Also, we've done a proportionate share agreement with that development because we got more money out of that than using the impact fees. So we could do either or, and we went with the proportionate share. But I will send you all of that information.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you for all the work you've done. I want to encourage you to continue to keep your mind open to vetting this topic that I think is of great concern to many people here today, but other topics that come forward in the coming months. I think sometimes when you're wrestling with these things that you often think that you're making a decision for the county, but really you're making a decision to go look at something closer and then potentially ask voters what they think about it. And so the idea of vetting it through that lens, I think, has to be the predominant lens. And when we have public outcry about something, it does give us a little bit of insight into the way voters are thinking. And I think every time we've asked them about protecting rural spaces and our wild spaces, they have been begging. not just asking, but begging to protect those wild spaces and rural spaces. I always found it interesting that when we had presentations from people that work in traffic engineering and that work on roadway design, that they called it roadway improvement. But there's a lot of people in the county that would say that their little sandy road was fine the way it was, and that by making it 6 lanes across and 65 miles per hour, you didn't improve anything, but how people may be cut from Lake County down into Osceola County. And so we have to be really cognizant about when we talk about improvement and growth, who are we impacting? And our rural communities have not benefited from a lot of this growth, and we don't know what's going to eventually happen to some of these wild spaces because we're running out of them. So I just want us to really keep an open mind looking at solutions. Seminole County has something that's worked for them. And I say work smarter, not harder. Let's find out what that is, and that's going to take a commitment from you all to maybe take a side look and do that subcommittee and really investigate what that could look like for Orange County. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to see you all good, in good health, and always serving our community. Thank you so much. And Mayor Demings, I love you dearly. I want to speak today about the charter. And as we all agree, the charter is about code ordinances. So as I recall, and I think it's the Constitution of Orange County. Years back, when I was an active county commissioner, I proposed to the Charter Commission at that time that the job for commissioners should be a full-time job. I remember very well that at that time I had one question from the board, and that question came from my good friend Peter Vivaldi, which many of you knows him, and his question was, Commissioner, do you feel then that if it's a full-time job, it should have a higher salary? And I said, no. Mm-hmm. At that time, the salary for county commissioners was $75,000, and we had 2 staff in our offices. Today, commissioner salaries, it's almost $100,000. And I watch the county meetings when it was approved, 3 staff members in that commission, because we have a growing population. My idea at that time of doing a full-time job was because we were growing in population. At that time, I had 186,000 residents. I know that today, comparable, we have around 240 and so forth. Let me remind this commission or this board that the job of staff is to take care of the constituents, the telephone calls, and resolve the issues that district commission brings. The commissioner's job is to come and work on new policy making, many others. And I know Commissioner Hartage, which served with me at that time, had those same ideas, or at least he can deal with those ideas well. Commissioners, of what I have found and seen, and I watched the commission, there is an issue of time management. If you know how to manage, you're the CEO. Each commissioner is the CEO for that district. So time management becomes a key ingredient on your decision, your daily decision making. This board is considering one of the idea of expanding to 8 districts. This is what I have found from my experience. This will be a huge burden to taxpayers. We have to consider new location. We have to consider even moving from this area. And I have heard, because I have attended to some of the meetings, the conference room. Let me give you some of my experience. The conference
Commissioner,
room.
We're going to have to ask you to kind of get us to the point if you can.
Yeah, I'm almost done.
Thank you.
The conference room was my office for several weeks when I was elected, and it's a mess. So that will bring also a complex redistricting. In closing, when candidates run for office, you need to understand as a candidate that you're running to be a public servant, not a corporate America position. I know that for a fact because I worked for IBM for 25 years, I worked for the federal government 8 years, and I worked for the county commission 6 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments. We appreciate all of our elected officials. Having been an official myself, I know how difficult it is to become a county commissioner, so we give them respect and we honor them for being here today. We're going to open the floor up for public comments. We have quite a few speakers, and some of you have decided to allot your time to other speakers, other persons. We have several topics on the board today. One of them is a public banking issue that's been proposed by a member in our audience. But that's on our agenda. So I'm going to ask Mr. Nelson Bonnecourt, if he'll hold his comments until we get to that item agenda, and then I will allow you time to speak. Now, other than that, is there anyone else that would like to speak on public banking? I have one additional card on that. That's Medina, please. And you have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I am Pablo Medina. I was here to talk about the.
Will you give us your
banking.
name and your address, please?
My name is Pablo Medina, and I live at 7319 Judd Way in Azalea Park for the last 22 years. I am an American citizen, and I am here to talk about the possibility to have the public bank. I don't know if this is my turn, because it seems to me that it's last in the list, in the agenda. In any event, I am here to say that a public bank will be a positive impact for people like me. I am an electrician. I know a lot of people that work in the construction disciplines that can benefit from a public bank rather than go to a large big bank, a big corporation in order to get a loan or in order to have a new car, a new van. So I'm here to tell you, please support this idea. It's an excellent proposal to have a public bank. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and we appreciate those comments. We have another card, Ali Bassa. Please come forward.
Hello, folks. My name's Adi Basu. I live at 1217 North Fern Creek Avenue. And I'm also here to speak in favor of the public bank so proposed. I'm a renter here in Orange County, and I recognize the public bank as a potential asset to our county's movement to create more affordable housing for our people. And I'll like it on record that bankers are my third favorite kind of people after lawyers and politicians. But in all seriousness, for people who don't understand the potential ramifications of having a public bank, it's, to me, a very simple idea. It's the idea of having added financial power. And when I was interning with Commissioner Wilson's office, in fact, one of the key points that I recognized in my research into the roadblocks we have to developing affordable housing in our county is the issue of getting finances for these affordable housing projects. And the way finance works, a lot of it's tied up with Wall Street and financiers that aren't invested in our community, the BlackRocks of the world, and being able to have a public bank in our backyard to get some more investment into various projects such as infrastructure and environmental projects as well, it will be an overall benefit. It really would, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Terry Falbo?
Hi, Terry Falbo, 1038 Windswept Court. Yes, I'm just speaking in favor of the public banking idea. I know Mr. Betancourt will give a lot of great information about places where it has been implemented that I think we can learn from. I just wanted to kind of speak, and I think the last speaker gave some really good ideas also. I just wanted to speak from the perspective of people who currently have a hard time obtaining a bank account, because I do know many such people who maybe they had a bank account at one point, but due to fees, if they overdrew the account or something and they got lots of fees and it ended up building up, and then their account got closed, and now they're kind of red flagged if they try to open an account somewhere else. So I think a public bank whose purpose is really to serve the people and not to put forth a lot of fees and make profits off of them, I think could be helpful in that respect. And then also, this is somewhat related, is right now we have a lot of the lenders, like here in Florida, we have AmScot. I know there's payday lenders. It is a fact that like 60% of American people, if they have like one emergency of $400 or $500 that was unexpected, have to borrow that money. Okay, so they might be able to put it on a credit card if they have decent enough credit to have a credit card. They might be able to get it from family, but if they don't, they go to something like AmScot here, and they borrow $500 so that they're whatever bills that they have to meet, and then they pay $553 back like a few weeks later. So.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the issue of public bank? Please give us your name and address.
Good afternoon, Chair Hardage, members of the Commission. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak today. My name is Gabriel Gomez. I live at 8041 Puffin Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32825. I'm a resident of Commissioner Uribe's district. I'm 24 years old. I'm an organizer. I graduated from UCF, and I've dedicated my short life so far to public service. So I'm here speaking today on behalf of my generation of Orange County residents, right? We're a generation, unlike our parents, who were able to experience an economic boom in the 80s and 90s. We've actually experienced a fall in the standard of living. And this is something that, if not corrected by local government, will continue to follow us and to plague us for the next 20 or 30 years, making it impossible to raise our own family, making it impossible to buy a home. and making social mobility, especially for marginalized communities, that much more difficult. I'm here. I want to express my support for the rural boundary. Also, I'm here to learn more about what it means to expand the term limits for county commission seats. I'm sure that's super important. But mainly, it's to, advocate for the creation of this public bank. When I heard about this meeting happening, it seemed like a really powerful idea to give the residents of Orange County who have been under the thumb of big corporations and big developers, unable to shape their own destiny, give them the tools to actually fight for their future generations. Orlando is an economic powerhouse, but our workers who are, propping up this city are never giving the tools, and I think a public bank created with the purpose of providing the necessary credit and financing for housing infrastructure is sorely needed. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Please, all Orange County residents want is a shot.
Thank you. What was your name?
Gabriel Gomez.
Thank you. Anyone else, please? Mr. Betancourt, I think I'm going to change this. There have been a couple of questions where people have asked, what is a public bank? So if you'd like to make a few comments after these speakers, and then you'll still be allotted time when it comes up on the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Thank you. I'm with Mentors for Fatherless Children in the Orange County District. We help kids 13 to 18 go through life decisions. And a lot of kids are having problems getting their banking where they're growing up making a lot of money at 17.
Sir, what's your name and address, please?
Leo Robinson.
Okay, thank you.
Forgive me. Leo Robinson out of off East Colonial, Alafaya area of Orange County.
Thank you.
Well, a lot of the kids in that area are asking for bank accounts. And we're doing our best as a nonprofit. We're 501c3 Mentors for Fatherless Children and Abused Families to help these kids get financially astute with finding a bank. And we heard about the bank that you're pertaining for us to start having. And it seems like something that is needed in our area. And I want to advocate for it also. And I want to thank you for allowing us to listen to you and learn about what you're doing so we can help these kids find a better way to get finances and get financially astute.
Thank you very much. I think we have one more person that would like to speak, please. Give address and the item you're speaking on.
Good afternoon. My name is Rene Gomez. I live on 12628 Victoria Place Circle, right by Waterford. Today I want to talk about a support for public banking. I work for a nonprofit here, and I spend most of my days out in the community, not only in Orange County, but Seminole, Osceola Lake, Brevard. And the need in the community is increasing, right? I work with a lot of food pantries, and their numbers. Graduated college. I'm doing my master's at UCF. The first job I got here working at Advent Health Winter Park, I was making $11 an hour, sleeping on the couch for 8 months. And I had support, I had family, I had loved ones, but a lot of people don't have that, right? So I could have easily been the person living in the tent right on 4, a few blocks from here, right? Suffering from this heat, not having food, not knowing where my next meal is going to come from. So I hope this gets implemented. You think about the community, think about the people, because we need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, give us your name, sir, please. Give us your name and address and the topic you're speaking on.
Mr. Chair, could we ask them to lift the microphone up and speak? It's directional, because I'm so sorry. I'm old, I can't hear, and I had a little trouble
Hello,
understanding.
can you hear me?
Perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eli LaSalle. I'm at 6332 Raleigh Street, Orlando, Florida, 32835. I am in favor of the public bank. I also consider it as a sovereign bank. And just to clarify, well, first of all, I work with Nelson, with the Public Banking Institute, and the idea is to spread awareness of what the public bank is. And just to be clear, it's a regenerative engine to help facilitate the finance and banking needs of Orange County. So there aren't any specific sort of physical places to go and bank. It's an institution for Orange County. Currently, Orange County banks with Wells Fargo, And considering all the headwinds that are out there, unrealized losses, 100 billion, the sad statistics go on. I hate to be the negative guy so early in the meeting, but that's the situation, and we bank with them. And so our money's at risk, and what happens once it hits the fan? And so that's the main idea of the public bank. And by being, I guess, in existence, it supports credit unions and the local banks. It teams with those smaller guys, so then they can facilitate more lending to the community. And that's the idea. They strengthen credit unions, small local banks, and that's how it spreads funding or capital to the community that's needed, that they don't typically receive. So I appreciate you guys listening and lending an ear to this important initiative, and I look forward to hearing my partner Nelson's talk.
Thank you very much. Mr. Betancourt?
Uh, 32812 in District 3. I have lived in Orange County for nearly 40 years. You have received a copy of my proposal for the creation of a public bank Orange County, or PBOC, a true depository municipal bank which can leverage its funds, as all banks are allowed to do, with a 10% capital requirement. It can leverage $1 in capital into $10 in loans to grow the local economy and respond to local needs and emergencies now and in the future. I propose that this bank, in its initial years, concentrate on funding infrastructure such as workforce housing and transportation projects, and in partnership with local community banks and credit unions, extend its range to small business lending and green manufacturing. In 1990, there were 15,000 banks in America. Today, there are around 4,672. And it's predicted that within the next decade, half of those banks will likely be swallowed by its competitors. By creating a public or municipal bank, Orange County will get ahead of what executives, advisors, and investment bankers are predicting as a seismic shift in our banking system, leading to a wave of mergers. This shift will lead to Orange County having less community banks, decreasing economic stability, fewer small businesses, markedly lower wages for workers, particularly lower income workers, a volatile tax base, and increasing regional inequality. Mr. Chairman, do I have another minute or so?
Yes, please. And remember, you're going to get extra time when the issue comes up on the agenda.
Oh, okay, so it's just 1 minute.
Thank you.
I actually thought it was 3 minutes. In creating Public Bank Orange County, we will have the local control necessary to be in command of our fate and not be its victims. Political opposition should be expected, and we should welcome it as a form of constructive engagement, as, after all, it's better for the bank to fail on paper first than to fail with the people's real money once the bank is established. The saying, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the second best time is now, tells us that it's never too late to influence the future. I humbly request that this commission establish a committee to study this proposal more deeply, and if it's probable viability, comprehensive potential, and far-reaching usefulness are found to be sound, that it be placed before the voters in the November 2024 elections ballot. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And just for the benefit of the public, early on in this process, I established a procedure for citizens to be able to get things on the agenda, and Mr. Betancourt has followed the procedure that I set up. He has met all the requirements. He has submitted his proposal to county staff. It's been reviewed by county staff and not by county staff, but by CRC staff and CRC legal, and that's why you'll see him on the agenda twice, first as a comment and then as an agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And that also goes for the rural boundary. They'll be on the agenda as well. So at the end of so a representative from the rural boundary will also appear on the agenda as well as in comments. I think that was our last comment on the issue of the public bank. I still have quite a few cards, and I'm not going to take for granted that all of them want to speak on the boundary or on the bank. If I call your name, well, first of all, is there anyone else that would like to speak on an issue other than the banking or the rural boundary? If you'll raise your hand, please. I see Ms. Harris, and I see.
I have 4 issues, so I want to be general.
Okay. Have all of you filled out cards?
Yes.
You fill out a card.
I was on the first one.
Okay, I do not have a particular order, so I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. Ms. Harris? And you'll have 2 minutes, please. Please state your name and your address and the issue.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cynthia Harris, 12 Channing Avenue, Orlando, 32811. I'm here today to speak on 911. The reason I'm asking about 911 is because our system is flawed and it needs better balance. I give you a couple of incidents. On December 24th, I called 911. No one answered. It rang, it rang, it rang. No one answered. I initially called the non-emergency number. Had I not been able to contact my police liaison, I was texting while the phone was still ringing in my hand. No one answered. I've addressed this issue with our chief of police, Eric Smith. But also, when you're talking about 911, whether you're in the city or the county, if you're in the city, they'll transfer it to the county because they're supposed to work together. And that's not happening because no one is answering. I've had 4 different incidents where I've called 911. I don't feel safe, especially when their permitless carry is now on the issue for us to not be able to feel safe because anyone can carry a gun without a permit now. But when I call 911 and I can't get an answer, it's very scary. So we need to do something about our 911 system and work together with the municipalities so that we can feel safer. And if it's a matter of funding, we need to fund that. We really need to fund that because I don't want another incident. I lost my father last year. I luckily was able to get 911, but it still wasn't on time. My father died.
Yes.
So I'm asking you to work with the city and the other municipalities, the other 13 municipalities, and let's get this 911 issue resolved because it's not safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in order, Madam? No, please, Ms. Harris. Thank you. There were 2 other people that wanted to speak before Rural Boundaries, please, and give your name, Ms. Yes, please. I'm sorry, I don't recognize your name. Give me your name and address and the issue that you're speaking on.
Trini Quiroz, 2000 Hillcrest, Orlando.
What was your name, please?
Trini Quiroz.
Okay, thank you.
It's been already 20 years and hardly anything changes to charter review committees. Anyway, I'm going to limit it to say that we need to expand the commissions. At the last review, we almost made it, but one traitor reneged, and we didn't get the 8 votes that we needed, so it didn't pass. It is impossible to assist or represent 240,000 people with all their problems. I don't really want to go against any one other person, but that is a reality. You can't rule and not do your job. I'm in support of the public banking. I'm in support of the rural boundaries, and I'm in support of term limits. Nobody should stay forever like they do in other areas, especially 3 blocks away from here. So basically, This is my first time coming to these hearings on this new review, and I expect to be in the others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I recognize one other gentleman in the back whose name I didn't call. Give us your name, your address, and your issue, please.
Yes, good evening. Mark Bender, 1857 Oak Lane, Orlando, 32803. I was at the meetings on Friday of the cleanup and the initiatives petitions, and I suggested to the subcommittees that while it's great to have a public comment at the beginning of the meeting, there's a lot of substantive issues and a lot of items discussed, which would, I think, allow for some additional comment towards the end of the meeting. And that was met favorably by both committees, and I would suggest that to the full commission, is to allow maybe 1 minute towards the end of the meeting to allow additional public comment, and I think that'd be a good idea. Thank you.
What was your name? Someone asked for your name. Mark Bender. Yes, sir,
Mr.
I see
Bender,
it.
I just might make a little note that our meetings have been lasting till 10:30 at night. So if everyone wants to stay and talk at the end, I think we'd all love that because we're usually really kind of bored at that point in time. We'd love to hear what y'all have to say at the end. Just saying.
Yeah, I've been at every meeting and every subcommittee meeting, and I think that you're not going to see a lot of additional time being necessary. Maybe 5 or 6 people, 5 or 6 more minutes. I could be wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we have quite a few cards on the rural boundaries, so I gather that's pretty important to a lot of people out here. A lot of you have donated your time to a single speaker. They were initially donated to Ms. Lori Cardinata. Is she present? Please. And we have Well, here's how we're going to do it to try to be fair. I'm going to ask you if you will please come to the mic, please, the podium. Give us your name and address and the issue you're speaking on, and I'm going to give you the unprecedented privilege of letting us know how much time you need.
Okay. And I abbreviated everything just because I thought I had 2 minutes. So.
How much time do you believe you need? I have at least 8 cards allowing you to speak on their behalf.
Isn't that sweet of
Yes,
them?
ma'am.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best to take up as much time as I can, so that we have no time at the end for anybody to take their 1 minute.
I will say you do not have to take all the time.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll make.
I see someone with your hand. I will recognize you later. I want to make sure everyone in the public has an opportunity to speak. This is the CRC is different from the county commission. This really is the people's court.
Yeah.
So we try to hear everyone. So please.
Where's Steve Harvey? You know, that is the funny show. Anyway, my name is Lori Cardenuto Forrester. I'm at 16050 Sandhill Road, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787. I am here to speak on the rural boundaries and the importance of establishing, hopefully you all voting in favor of establishing a committee in order to address rural boundaries in Orange County. As you know, Seminole County is, if you talk about regionalism between Orange County and Seminole County, we really are so interconnected. There are people that live in Orange County, and in order to get out of their driveway, they have to cross into Seminole County. They have, I think it was 2004, they approved their rural boundary. And the benefits that they have seen as a result of that, because I did hear Lee Constantine's he had talked once about the benefits that they had experienced in Seminole County as a result of doing this. Everything from controlled and sustainable growth to tremendous cost savings by ensuring that rural development was controlled, and the urban service area is where the high density approvals for development occurred. I was listening to a bunch of different meetings and things, and one of the things that I did remember hearing was that I think it was the University of Florida did a study about Orange County, and did we have enough land to sustain the amount of the population that would actually be moving into the area. And I believe it was like over the next 40 years, our urban service area has more than enough land to accommodate that.
in addition, the redevelopment of some of the areas that are in decline was also something that they had talked about, because the infrastructure exists within the urban service area. To take a rural service area where we are on septic tanks and wells and try to pretend you're going to put urban densities in a rural service area, there's this thing that is called cost that has to happen, and someone has to pay for the cost of the infrastructure. So to my understanding, from personal experience as well, is when I have talked to county staff at times, the cost of the infrastructure improvements, and this was one case, was like $1.8 million, and the developer's share was $127,000. So who pays the difference? All of us sitting here pay the difference. So what is critical in my mind about doing a rural boundary is the ability to have the smart growth and to say we are not going to burden our citizens, all, for the most part, all but a handful of citizens, and some of these handful of people don't even live in our counties. So a handful of people benefit from cheaper land in rural areas and us paying for the infrastructure for them to profit. So we need to look critically at using, and of course, I know that sometimes this is a wrong thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I have looked at Seminole County's rural boundary. I have seen how they have won in local, state, and federal courts for anyone that challenged their rural boundary, and they have won. So I think that how Seminole County wrote their rural boundary could be a roadmap for us to write our rural boundary. But, you know, Orange County is notorious. Oh, maybe that's a bad word, too. You know, I don't have a filter here, so you're just going to have to excuse me. But Orange County has been notorious for allowing urban sprawl. I go to an awful lot of BCC meetings speaking against a developer who has initially got approval for a walkable community, and then they turn around and they take all of the commercial out, and they put in high-density apartments and things like this, and then they keep going out, and they keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. So all of that to say is, I think it's fiscally irresponsible of us not to consider creating a committee or a work session or whatever, I guess you guys call it a committee, to look into the possibility of creating a rural boundary, specifically because I pay enough money in taxes and everything else, and for me to have an increase in the amount of outflow that I have to give to benefit a few, that creates more issues and trouble, and there's never concurrency between putting something in a rural area and having the infrastructure, particularly roads, to accommodate that infrastructure. The concurrency just isn't there. So by having a rural boundary and have to have a super majority of the BCC to make any changes to the comp plan or to the flume for that rural boundary, in my mind, would ensure that we are looking at sustainable, smart growth, and trying to keep infrastructure that exists improved in those areas where you have that high density. And I think, the other thing too is that I forgot to say was, you know, I think one of the things that is really critical to everyone here, whether you live in a town, whether you live in a city, whether you live in downtown Orlando, it doesn't really matter, but everybody wants a specific quality of life. You have chosen to live where you live because that satisfies your personal need for you and your family. And one of the things that we constantly do is we are constantly fighting urban sprawl with the BCC. For those of us that do live in rural areas, we have chosen to live there. We have fought very hard to live there. And what it seems like is that you get developers' attorneys. We have no money. Our homeowners association is $30 a year for your homeowners dues, and that's voluntary. So we generally have maybe 80 people that give us $30 once a year. We have no money for an attorney. The only thing that we have is me and my mouth. And sometimes that's good, but most of the time that's bad. But all I can say is we really would like to preserve the quality of our lives, whether you choose to be in the city and you want better connectivity from a mass transit standpoint, or you live in the country and you want to be able to ride your horses, and I don't want my cows getting hit by cars if they get out of my field, and on and on and on. And the quality of life, by doing a rural boundary, that would help ensure the quality of life that every person in this room has chosen to live. And it is fiscally more responsible, in my opinion, to not benefit a few, but to benefit the masses. And I'll give you 1 minute and 50 seconds back. Thank you.
Thank you, and we love you the more. Very good presentation.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question of the commenter?
Do you mind waiting until we've heard all of them? I think there are only a few. Yes, go ahead.
It's just a quick question, because
here's what I want to avoid. I want to avoid us going back and forth with each presenter as we go through, because it really would work. But we'll make an exception if it's brief.
it's going to be very, very quick. Ms. Forster, you and the people who donated their time, when we talk about a rural boundary singular, what you're really saying is rural boundaries, because you are on the west side and there are a lot of people on the east side. They're here tonight.
Miss, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Ma'am, no response from the audience. Audience, please. Thank you. All right, thank you. We have Cheryl Coates has allowed her time for Hal Coates. Hal?
Hello, my name is Hal Coates. I'm a Navy veteran.
Your address, please, and the topic you're speaking on.
Rural boundaries.
Okay.
I've lived in Orange County for 58 years, spent 27 in the Navy. I'm a retired senior chief hospital corpsman, deep sea diver. A lot of things have happened in 58 years. East Orange County is just getting pounded with development. The rural boundary, I would really like to see it established at the econ. And I'd like for this committee, this board, to consider it, to start the process to establish that boundary. That's what this big meeting is for tonight. Secondly, as we go through this thing, meetings at Corner Lake, meetings at the high school, the county comes out with a team of people, sometimes 10, 15 people, and they support the developer. We've never had a county representative give us good information to fight this battle. Mayor, is there such a thing for that?
Sir, you have to direct your comments to the chair of the CRC.
The chair, understood. And so it's a lopsided battle. I mean, we go to this meeting and all these county employees are like giving us the warm puff of air. And nobody is actually will stand up and say, hey, this may not be a good idea, especially the environmental people. I mean, I can't see an environmental person saying, hey, this is a good idea to put 1,958 homes out there on North Pickett. It's not going to have an impact on you. That is not the case. We live on wells. And when they put those 1,958 homes out there, the majority of those people are going to put a well in to water their yard. They're not going to be drinking that water. I do, but they're going to be getting city water, and they don't want to pay. They'd rather pay a little bit of money to get a well, and then they're going to suck that water right out of the ground. And then everything is flooding out there. North Christmas Road in Seminole County, Christmas Road at Ripe Boats Ranch floods, West Christmas, Fort Christmas Road, they all flood. And nobody's done nothing out there to resolve those issues. The weather's changing. Especially this year, the phenomenal rain is just pounding East Orange County, and it's having a negative impact. With all this asphalt, these new roads, where's this water going to go? There's people on the corner of Chuleota Road and Lake Pickett, they're going to be flooded. And I don't think anybody's putting money aside to, help them out when that's over and done. The people that bought property in East Orange County realized they could have one house on 10 acres.
Two more
Now,
minutes.
do I have 2 minutes for myself?
Two additional minutes, please. Yes, sir.
So, when I bought my property, I realized that they said, hey, you can have one house on 10 acres. So, like Mr. Rybolt, who originally owned that piece of property, he's passed away. He knew that, and he's gone. I grew up with Mr. Rybolt, Mr. Barton. They would never want this to happen out there. But this is all about greed. There's some venture capitalists, developers. They want to build those 1,958 homes. They're going to sell for more than $450,000, and that's going to be $881+ million that's going to run through there. And there's going to be a lot more just in the things that have to go through. And it's all about greed. The second issue is, now, y'all some nice-looking people, and you've done very well. But if I put together some venture capitalists, and I bought all the property around your home, which you love and you've been there forever, and I said, hey, Orange County's got a lot of drug addicts, a lot of schizophrenic, mentally health people. I'd like to buy the house beside you and turn it into a facility where I could house 10 or 15 schizophrenics on one side and about 20 fentanyl addicts on the other. You would come undone. Now, that is a little different, but that's just what these venture capitalists, these land developers do. They know that that's one house on 10 acres, but they want to put 4 or 5 on there. And that changes the whole nature of our life. I've been there for 58 years. You wouldn't like it if it happened to you. That's all I got to say. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Coates. Mike Parrish has allotted his time to Debbie Parrish. Debbie, please. Welcome back.
My name is Debbie Parrish. I live with my husband at 4563 Chuleota Road in Orlando, 32820, and actually right across from Lake Pickett North. And I'm here, I was actually hoping to follow Kelly Semra because I know she had everything on paper that she wanted to say to y'all, so just remember what I'm going to say real quick. First of all, we've been there 38 years. And when we moved there, you know what, when you live in the rural area, you accept the fact that you're going to drive a little further to the grocery store, you're going to go further for amenities, and you work that into your schedule. So I never expected a Publix to be built 3 miles down the road, right? What I'm here to tell you, though, is that we have 173 members. I'm the president of the Lake Pickett Community Organization. We've been around probably 22 years now. We have 173 members in that, and I've been authorized to ask all of you to please, would you consider putting a group together to investigate, to give us finally a rural boundary in Orange County? It is sorely needed. I wish that 20 years ago we had some of the impassioned people that are here tonight and the involvement to try to get this done. I also have permission from the estates at Lake Pickett, their board, which consists of another 250 people, to ask you to do the same thing. And I have permission from people that are willing to help do the research to see that we can finally get this done. And I could talk about a lot of other subjects that people have tapped on tonight, but it's not the right time. But yes, I'm a realtor, 32 years. There are other areas that can be redeveloped for a better and higher purpose. Just need committees to work on that as well. So thank you for your time again and your consideration.
Thank you very much. Jeff Clark has allotted his time to Lori Forrester. Lori Forrester, please. Yes, got it. No. I mean, you had great comments, but we kind of got it. Now, here's what I'm. She's here. Okay. I still have about 20 cards, and I know that most of you have donated, have allocated your time. So I'm going to try to do this a different way. It may not work. But is there anyone here who has not allotted their time to one of the speakers? Okay, I better go through the cards. All right. Ariel Horner, please state your name and the issue you're here for in your address.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ariel Horner. I live at 604 Forest Drive, Castleberry, Florida, 32707. I am a conservation biologist and a board member for the Florida Bat Conservancy, and I'm here today to talk about the rural boundary. One of our other speakers did speak on some of the important assets that the rural boundary would give us, and one of those is the aquifer. So without the ability for water to come through the sandy soil, we don't have wells, we don't have drinking water. And those impervious surfaces that are asphalt and roads and driveways prevent it from percolating and filtering and giving us the clean water we need. Additionally, the flooding has been astronomical. My barn flooded, I'm in Seminole County, but my barn flooded 2 feet of water during Hurricane Ian, okay? And that didn't happen. My barn owner has been there since the 70s. It's never happened. The other thing that's really concerning to me is the aspect for diseases. Because of the flooding, there have been malaria outbreaks in Sarasota County. Now, I'm a bat advocate. There's not enough habitat for our natural predators of mosquitoes, and you're seeing it right before your eyes. We haven't had a malaria case in Florida in over 40 years, and there's 6 already. We're right behind them. With the flooding and the decline of the natural predators in Orange County, you are creating a recipe for disaster and cost. So this rural boundary will not only give us clean water to drink, places to live for those who choose the country lifestyle, and it will give habitat for our wildlife that we so need to help protect us from these emerging infectious diseases. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I call your name and you've allotted your time, just pass. Kelly Simrad, please. You know, you're welcome to speak now. You'll be called as well when your agenda item comes up. It's up to you. Thank you. Pamela Seibel. Thank you. Give us your name, your address, and the issue you're here on.
Thank you. My name is Pamela Seibel. I'm here on the rural boundary. My address is 16011 Old Shaney Highway, 32833. I live east of the Econ River in the rural settlement. When years ago, you guys may remember this, when our mayor at the time was Mayor Linda Chapin, she said there would be no development east of the Econ. She tried to put in measures that would really protect the rural area, protect our water, protect our stormwater, and there was a lot going on there. So my husband and I are country kids. We both were raised on farms. And so we ended up buying property east of the Econ in a rural settlement. All right, we think we're protected. My husband's in real estate. He's been in real estate for over 30 years. So we did this as our final purchase of land. Unfortunately, over the years, not only myself and my husband, but our neighbors and other people that we got to know because of the hardships, we have had terrible drainage issues, flooding issues, fighting. Mayor Demings and the commissioners have seen me before. We are density development. Still, today, we have drainage issues. We have EPD tested that water multiple times for 2 years, and it is not just high of E. coli, it's 4 times the level of the state allows. So it's still under investigation. When I went to the meeting Saturday, I looked at the stormwater management plan for Lake Pickett North, runs south. So our wells are going to be impacted by what they send us. Our gardens are going to be impacted by what they send us. And that is just one example. They also allowed new development to have septic off of 419. Oh, yes, it's a fancy septic. But is that what you guys want? Let's stay strong and have that rural boundary that way back then with Mayor Chapin, it was a plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make one comment to staff. I noticed we're starting the timer as they're giving their name and address. Let's start the timer after they give their name and address and their issue, and that way they get their full 2 minutes. That's one reason I let that go on. Looks like Maria Bolton John Beck. Please correct your name when you come up. I know you well.
It's my husband's name. It's not mine. I'm just playing.
I have no comments.
My name's easier. I just want to point out that my kid's here. I'm making an effort. He's going to be 6 in October. Okay. My name is Maria Bolton Jobert. I live at 1377 Page Avenue, Orlando, Florida, 32806. And I'm speaking on behalf of the rural boundary. If you notice with the zip code, I don't live in the rural boundary, but I care about it. And I've been making these meetings, particularly one that's been going on since 2013, so 10 years. It's crazy. But, okay, so maybe Commissioner Bonilla said this, someone up here said this, $400 million to improve roads to cover impacts. We'd be using taxpayer money to subsidize this sprawl. I believe it was Commissioner Bonilla. I didn't even realize that. I'm 41. And again, we've been dealing with one issue for 10 years, so since I was 31. How many other people don't realize that we're subsidizing these developers, right? So they get rich off of us. What's up with that? And their argument each time is, yeah, we're making affordable housing or not enough single-family homes. Well, Florida is the 3rd most populated state, 26th largest in relation to land mass. Everybody's moving here. We have outside investors. Somebody's got the numbers. 6% of South Florida is owned by Venezuela. What percentage of Venezuelans, Colombians, Russians, whomever, Canadians, own property here? We will never satiate the need for outside investment, period. Blackstone, the stock market, Airbnb. You know who owns the property across the street from me? And I'm in the city of Orlando. Across the street is unincorporated Orange County. He's Canadian. And you know what Canada just did? Trudeau has blocked it. So for 2 years solid, because they have an affordable housing crisis, no outside investors. Don't make the argument, these developers make the argument that they're building affordable homes. They are not, period. We have a problem here. We need a rural boundary, and I support public banking because it's black and white. It's obvious what is happening in this country, and you all have the power to make some change. Please, I could cry up here for the rural boundary. I care. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Spears, Gordon Spears, please give us your name, your address, and your issue.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone on this Charter Commission. It's very important work that you're doing. Thanks for your time. My name is Gordon Spears, 1626 Baltimore Avenue, Orlando. I'm here to speak in favor of the rural boundary I serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission for District 5, which is Emily Benea's district. She appointed me to that commission. And I've noted that the county is really investment for the county is pretty difficult. We could have easily foreseen that was going to be too expensive for what we can afford. I don't think that the rural boundary is the perfect mechanism to ensure that we spend the money wisely, but I do think that it will probably work better than our current urban service boundary, which has proven itself to be too easy to move around in most cases. Sometimes it makes sense to expand the urban service boundary, but far too often it's expanded where it didn't make any sense. And I think that the rural service boundary will add a lot of rigidity to Orange County's spine when it comes to making intelligent financial decisions for our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maria Martinez, have you? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Maria Martinez. I live at 14431 Stanford Circle, Orlando, Florida, and I'm here to speak on the road boundary as well. And I would like to request respectfully that you consider the establishment of a rural boundary committee, as has been stated here earlier. I will admit to you to having rural boundary envy. I live on the border, as I said at the last meeting when I met with you all, of Orange and Seminole. Every day when I exit my home, I exit onto the Seminole side of McCulloch Road. And my husband and I have looked at property there because you do have a rural boundary in Seminole County, and you do have the opportunity to purchase homes that are on larger acreage and also be adjacent to urban, amenities. And I will just say that it would be nice to have those same diversity of options in Orange County. And I think that and you heard Commissioner Constantine at the last meeting discussing how it's not just a theory that money is saved, but in fact, that is the reality in Seminole County. Money is saved for taxpayers. And as been said here, I think everyone, I'm guessing, has gotten the nice surprise as homeowners of their insurance bill this year. So mine went up from less than $2,000 to over $6,000. And so the insurance is one expense. Right now we're looking at having to raise taxes constantly because the new building, the new development does not support the infrastructure that's necessary. And as has been said here, we're all going to be paying into the future for that. So really respectfully request that you consider that. We think there's a lot to be learned from Seminole County, and I think Mr. Constantine said it very eloquently at the last meeting. There's a lot that we should be learning from our neighbors and can do, I think, to make Orange County a better place for all of us to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bobby Bills? Bobby Bills? He's not here. Beagles. I mispronounced. I know him so well. That's bad. That's because I've always just called him by his first name. And that's been for 20 plus years. And after this, we still have about 10 or 15 cards left. If I call your name and someone has already made your point, you can just announce what you're here for and say, I support the rural boundary. I think we get the message now. But if you have something special to say, don't let me be the one to cut you off. You have your 2 minutes. But if your point has been made, generally the rule is everything that needs to be said has been said, but not by everybody. So go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Bobby Biggles, 21302 for Christmas Road, Christmas, Florida. My parents bought our ranch in 1956. This year is the first year I've ever had 2.5 feet of water in my hayfield. My property runs 1 mile deep from Fort Christmas Road. I stood right here at this microphone in 1990 begging y'all not to pass the rural settlements. We ended up in Christmas with 6 rural settlements. You have grown, and grown. Not y'all. As you know, and I know, Homer, only thing you got to do is get 4 county commissioners to agree with the change. Originally, it was supposed to have been 1 house per acre. I think we ended up in some of the picket stuff 4 houses per acre. But at the same time, the water all goes east. Where is Christmas? East. So if you don't stop growth, you might as well get the St. Johns River to flood all the way up to the college. Then we'll have water everywhere. But I understand y'all's problems because you really don't have the final word. And I appreciate our county commissioners. But at the same time, I have never run into a developer that made money off a housing project. They always have to expand bigger. You prove it 1 house per acre, they want 4 houses per acre. West Orange County is a good example of what they have done. We don't want it east of the Econ, but we don't have it. I'm asking you to set the boundary line at Chutiota Road, which you already have Pickett South and Pickett North approved. No more development east of Chutiota Road unless it's 1 house per acre or 1 house per 10 acres, which you zoned my ranch as from 1 house per acre in 1990 to 1 house per 10 acres. But I put in what was called a family lot provision plan. For us owning the property in 1990, I was allowed to give my daughter 2 acres to put a house on. That is still in the book. So the people that live there, if they have the property, they can give their kids a piece to work. But we need it stopped. And I know I'm out of time. But do the best you can do. Just stop growth. I know the county has to have money. I know the fire department has to have a raise every year. The sheriff department. The roads has got to be built. There got to be some other way that the people, we're the last rural settlement in this county. It's Christmas. And if it don't stop now, hey, they don't stop. So appreciate the extra time.
Thank you.
And thank y'all for taking your time to be here to listen to us.
And we appreciate your comments as well. I'm going to go to Marjorie Holt. Next person will be Lee Perry, if your comments haven't been made.
Good evening. Marjorie Holt, 8502 Elveron Avenue, Orlando, Florida. And I live towards the east side in the urban service area. I'm here representing the Sierra Club. It's a 501c3, C4 environmental organization. And I think it's important to clarify, probably a lot of you on the CRC and our audience realize just what establishing an urban boundary or boundaries would do, but I ran across a good explanation by Commissioner Constantine, and it goes, what does this mean? It means that it maintains a consistent policy for the rural service area, one governing body to have final authority. And the Seminole County Amendment establishes within the Home Rule Charter a rural boundary, defines rural lands, and provides authority to amend the boundary and land use designations within the rural area to the Board of County Commissioners. This means that the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners has final decision-making power on land use amendments on all lands within the rural area as established by this amendment, whether located in unincorporated Seminole County or within any of the cities. So, I mean, that's important because we face annexation issues in a lot of jurisdictions around us. So, as an environmental organization, I just want to stress, I believe the importance, as climate change presents many challenges for us. rising heat, we're going to have a migration of population and the need for wildlife, but it really helps protect the sun, air, water, soil, and the wildlife of our rural lands. We have the Econ on one side, we got the Wekiva on the other, and we've got state preserved conservation corridor out there. So thank you. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. So my name is Lee Perry. I live at 2008 Corina Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32810. Thank you all so much for allowing me to speak. I'm here to show my support for the fortification of the rights to clean water and Split Oak Forest Charter Amendment, as well as asking you all to please consider developing a working group committee to preserve and create rural boundaries here in Orange County. Many people have spoken about some of the economic impacts of sprawl as well as the transportation issues, but I'm here to speak up for our wildlife. As you all know, Back to Nature, they do a lot of animal rehabilitation here in Orange County, and they're seeing their numbers triple since 2020. Animals are being impacted greatly by this development to the point where when they're sick, usually when an animal has some type of illness or disease, they usually leave wherever their habitat is so that they can go off and die and not infect the rest of their population. They're starting to see that the sprawl is really affecting that behavior, and they're starting to bring diseases closer to other animals and other developments, which is a huge health risk for all of us. Also, I just wanted to talk about the fact that our waters are already, 90% of our water bodies are already egregiously impaired, and we aren't even testing for a lot of the emergent chemicals that we're starting to see cause cancer all throughout our country. So we really need to pay attention to how this sprawl is going to directly impact our wildlife and our natural spaces. And so I really feel like a working group to kind of set a standard for this sprawl and for this development that's coming would be really impactful for us long term.
We're literally against the river. Probably shouldn't have been built there, but it was. And so we represent really the last neighborhood before we move across the urban services line into the 1 in 5 and 1 in 10 designations. So I really just wanted to speak on, I think the reason this is such a problem is because you all know we've had the land use plan in place for, we're getting close to 30 years, right? We're going to change that and revise that or update it. And so for 30 years, basically all of the residents, Orange County, all of the business owners on that side of town have been doing what they're doing, chosen to live there, invested money in their businesses and the like, based on that plan. And that plan has that urban services line right there at the river. And of course, it has the 1 in 5 and the 1 in 10 acreage. Hence why we have what we have, why people live out there, including myself. I'm the opposite of Bobby. I don't want to live on a bunch of acreage, but I want to live next to all that acreage. Hence, I chose to live where I invested my, I guess what today is over $800,000, which is nuts, but that's what it is apparently. So again, we're not asking much. Simple put together of a committee is, I think, the simple ask. So I appreciate in advance all of your positive votes for that, and we'll look forward to a lot of the studies that you'll do. And I think Kelly has a nice list of roughly 15 items that she'd love you guys to consider. And of course, we've got a wonderful footprint, as everybody said, with Seminole County to see what we can do right or even better than they did. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. John, Lena?
Good evening, committee members. My name is John Lina, L-I-N-A. I live at 3651 Oriskany Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32828. And I'm here to support the working group to establish the rural boundary. I don't think I can say it any better than some of the other distinguished guests, the commissioner and some of the other citizens. So I'll just say that I'm here in support of the rural boundary, and please give it your most earnest consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trini? She spoke already. I have Kathy Shurin. She's spoken. She spoke. No, she's here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Sheeran. I live at 2450 Williams Road, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787, and I'm a resident of the Lake Avalon Rural Settlement. I'm here to speak on behalf of the rural boundaries. Having designated rural boundaries that confirm these areas would not be subject to intense development of houses, commercial buildings, strip malls, etc. The boundaries would be clearly defined and developers would be aware of these restrictions. Rural areas do not have the necessary infrastructure such as multi-lane roads, water plants, sewers, as well as mass transit. The cost of development for this infrastructure to the citizens of Orange County would be very prohibitive. Rural areas also provide recharge areas that are vital to the health and stability of the Florida aquifer. And due to the tree canopies of the rural areas, they help to clean the air by absorbing air pollutants and reduce smog. They cool the air temperature and reduce the effects of the urban heat island, and they also capture rainwater, reducing runoff and flooding. Rural areas maintain green spaces, a vital commodity to the health and well-being of the citizens of Orange County. Therefore, I respectfully request that the CRC members consider to vote for the formation of the rural boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the last card that I have. Is there anyone that was missed or anyone that would like to speak who did not complete a card? Seeing none, we'll now close this part of our public hearing, and we'll have comments from the boards. Our first questions will go to the issue of the public bank and then the rural settlement. Those seems to be the two top issues. If I missed any, the board and staff will bring it to my attention, but we'll start with questions about the rural settlement. Now, remember, the banking issue. Remember, both of these issues are on the agenda. So if you have questions, you can ask them now, or you can hold them until the presentation. My recommendation would be that we hold them until the formal presentation, since there are only two issues that I've noticed. Now, have anyone noticed anything other than those two? Thank you. Then what we'll do is we'll hold comments until those items come up on the agenda. That'll be in the best interest of the public, I believe, and the board. Having said that, I'm going to move to our consent agenda, which is the approval of our June 15th meeting agenda, and then we'll have a short break, and then we'll come back with committee updates, which should go relatively quickly, and then we have discussion of the items of interest. Can we get a motion to approve the? Been moved by Member Wynn, seconded by Vice Chair Shara. All in favor? Any questions about the agenda? The minutes. Seeing none, all in favor signify by aye. Aye. It's been carried unanimously that the meeting minutes of June 15, 2023 is approved. Thank you. We'll have a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll have the committee updates, and then we'll move right into the discussion items. Thank you. Short break. Let's keep it to 10 minutes or less. Everybody, please take your seats, and will all the committee members please take their place at the dais. The meeting is now back in order. We'll see. Okay, the meeting is now called to order. We're going to have our committee reports. Right now, we have 3 standing committees: a governmental structure, initiative petition committee, and charter cleanup committee. I want to start by saying that your initial reports from your meetings have been all very good. I won't say I've enjoyed reading them, but they've been easy reading and easy to understand. So it's understandable that you're doing great work. And I just want to congratulate you all for the diligence you put into all the committees that we've set up. That takes a lot of work and a lot of time. So I want you to know that as chair, I appreciate that. And I look forward to getting final reports back to the board. And at our next meeting, I'll be working with staff to start to get together with each committee to begin to work out a schedule for getting your final committee reports back to the board, so that you'll have some kind of parameter as to how to get things done. But as for now, if we can have brief reports from each chair, and I want to stress the word brief if you can, because everybody here has received a copy of your reports by now, and I hope you've read them. Governmental structure, Chair Patilla. Comments, please.
Yes, good evening, Chair. At our June 28th meeting, we changed the name of the committee. Our committee was
voted on both of these committees. We voted to have you look at the governmental structure and the expansion of the Board of County Commissioners. Can staff clarify that for me, what we agreed on last meeting?
Chairman, would you like me to go ahead and handle it? Yes, thank you. At your last meeting, you all expanded the scope of that committee.
Correct.
That committee had previously been referred to as the Expansion County Commission Committee, because that was its scope at that time. Mm-hmm. At their last meeting, they discussed the matter in the interests of making sure the public had a good understanding of the breadth and particulars of the scope they were going to be looking at. They voted at that time that would be an appropriate name for their committee. I did recommend to them that I thought it would be appropriate to advise the full CRC of that and see if there is any objection to that change.
Thank you. I'm not sure if there's any objections or not, but I know that the full board would have to vote to change a committee, not to change the structure. But I don't have any objections to that, unless someone else does. Let's get the paperwork straight, though. If we can get a motion to change the name to Expansion of County Commission. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we change the name of the subcommittee.
I'll second. It's been moved and second that we change the name of the governmental structure to Expansion of County Commission. We have a motion and a second. Motion.
And Chairman, it's the other way around. From
the other way around.
To
expansion of County Commission to governmental structure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion by Member Patella, seconded by Member Wynn.
Member Callen, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Member Callen.
Made the motion, and Member.
Seconded by Member Wynn. Any discussions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? It's so moved that the name is changed from Expansion of County Commission to governmental structure.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, next commission is Initiative Petition Committee. Member Wynn.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Turn your microphone on. Am I on now? Yep. Okay. Thank you, Chair. In our last meeting, we discussed Commissioner Bonilla's letter that she had brought to us, and we did not finish because we had paused for one of my commission friends to come, not our commission friend, our commission member to come to the meeting, because she had requested that we go through the Initiative 601, and she came, and we decided to go through Initiative 601. and that's a referendum to change the charter voting initiative. Everyone knows about 601, hopefully. You've read it. So we agreed in our meeting to change it from 10% to 5% and reduce the petition to enact and amend or repeal by a majority from all the way to the initiative overview process. And we changed 602 A, B, C, and D. And we left E until we start our next initiative meeting. That's my report.
Thank you very much. The Charter Cleanup Committee meeting, Chair Grimmer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to thank Angel for taking the bullet for this one, because we also want to propose to change our name from the Charter Cleanup Committee to the Workforce Housing and Charter Cleanup Committee. So maybe we can deal with that at the end, the motion to change the name. But as by way of a report, so this was the first committee meeting we had after we expanded our scope to consider the charter proposal to include the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and its funding source and associated workforce housing issues into the scope of our committee. We had a great conversation last Friday about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and good conversation with Mr. Vos about other examples of charter counties in Florida that have done so already, such as Broward and Alachua, which he personally worked on. And they also include not only have their Affordable Housing Trust Fund inside their county charter, but also funding sources. So we talked about the potentialities of how we could do something similar to not run afoul of state law, that if we were to craft a charter amendment that kind of ties the hands of the county commission in terms of budgetary issues. So we had a real good conversation about that, and then other potential issues about crafting the language of the amendment, such as, you know, how specific do we want to get in terms of definitions of terminology. Like, for instance, Broward defines affordable housing as 140% of area median income. Alachua also considered the issue of including in their charter amendment proposal, even though they decided not to do so ultimately, making contributions for mandatory contributions from developers into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and they ultimately chose not to do so for reasons under state law, but that's something that we're going to think about as a committee as well. Our next meeting is going to be, we're going to receive a presentation from county staff about the affordable housing in the state of affordable housing in Orange County, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and how we can move forward in crafting our proposal. But it was, we also would like to change the name of our committee, though.
And what is the proposed change and the reason?
So the proposed change is changing the committee name to the Workforce Housing and Charter Cleanup Committee. That's based on the expanded scope of the committee to include the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Any objections, any comments from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll move that we change the name, Chair.
We have a motion by Member Ritzy, seconded by Member
I'll second it.
Chicago. Any questions, any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
On the affordable housing activity. Obviously, there's a big discussion going on in the RTC with the Tourist Development Council and the surplus funds that are available, limited use of those funds, obviously. But I think affordable housing would be part of that. So somehow, some way, I think we need to petition the county commission that they should consider donating part of that money to affordable housing, because the tourist industry itself is unfortunately a low salaried program, and they're the ones that are causing the major problem in the community as far as affordable housing. They have nowhere to stay at the prices that construction and everything else is at this time. So if you put the emphasis on where the problem is and the money coming from that problem, it would seem to me that tourist resort, tax fund, part of it could go, for affordable housing versus putting a roof on the arena, or the stadium, or expanding Dr. Phillips. Those are real nice things, but they're not necessary. we got a problem with affordable housing in this community, and you got to take the resources that you have and apply them to where the problems are. We don't have any problem with the stadium. I mean, it's old, and you'd like to make it for an NFL team, but you don't do what St. Petersburg did, build a stadium, and then 20 years later you finally get a team. And it's dilapidated by the time the team moves there. Now they got to build a new one. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues. I was chairman of the Sports Commission for Central Florida, and I can tell you, you're not going to get an NFL team here, for years to come. We're growing, obviously, but you got Jacksonville in Miami. I mean, Jacksonville in Tampa. And they're not going to let you, get in here. And baseball's kind of going by the wayside a little bit. They're running off of TV money, really. They get 15, 20,000 people. They're lucky to get that attendance. So, I think it would be, incumbent upon us to put our 2 cents in with the county commission about affordable housing. And those tourist tax dollars, they're talking about $800 million. And I've done affordable housing. I had 5,000 units at one time from Tampa all the way to Melbourne. And, I know the process in Tallahassee, and it's very complicated, but very succinct, and they watch it like a hawk. But you've got to have a stacking of financing in order to do it, where the county and the banks and everybody else gets together and says, we'll take this piece of it, so make sure that we got enough money to build the units, and then they reduce the rents based upon, a competition on the funds, and you reduce the rents to, a certain percentage of what they contributed to affordable housing trust funds in Tallahassee, and the federal government contributes part of that money, 25, it used to be 25, I'm sure it's a little higher per person for the whole state, so they multiply it and you get tax credits. There's a whole process, believe me, it's complicated, but it works. And it's been working. So I would say that this board should take a strong stance while that money's sitting out there. And you got people in this community that need help, and not a new cover on the arena, or a new arena's in there also.
Thank you. Any further comments?
No.
Yes, we're all punched in.
Okay, Mr. Callen.
I agree with. Oh, sorry, Dottie.
Dottie's got kicked off.
I agree with Lee. I think this is something that we as a committee should suggest the commission look at. There clearly is a funding shortfall in the county for affordable housing. And like Lee made the connection, to the tourist industry and the need for their employees to have adequate housing that is reasonably priced. And so I think it's something that we should suggest to the board. And maybe the county should craft a very minor amendment to maybe get that through. So I would encourage the board to do so.
Thank you. Member Nguyen.
Yes, I forgot to mention that Commissioner Benia's letter to us, she asked for a number of things, and I mentioned we went to 1 to 4, but I want to let her know that we did not finish. We're going to go back at our next meeting and complete her request. And I can't say exactly what's going to happen, but we're going to work on it.
Thank you. Member Winesboro.
Okay. My request is of the committee. If in your research you will ask for the documentation and backup of what the current commission just did, because they did an initiative on this and passed a program, and it would be nice to have that program complement what new activity your committee's coming up with your initiative. I tried to research that yesterday when I was doing this, and I didn't have access to it. So they passed a program which is in place right now. So it would be good to know what's already done, so when we build something new, we can complement that.
Yeah, what this
Member
proposal,
Brimer.
Oh, sorry, Chair. What this proposal is meant to do is, Orange County already has an affordable housing trust fund, in place. And
my request is that we get that documented as part of your
I mean,
program,
it's
so that we
municipal.
can refer to it as we're considering the whole program.
Sure,
That's
yeah.
all I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Back on the motion to adjust the name of the committee. Any further questions on the name of the committee, on that issue only? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote on the change of the committee name to be, help me out, Charter Cleanup Committee and Workforce Housing
and Charter Cleanup.
Okay, so be it. All in favor signify by aye. Any opposed signify by nay. Okay, I'm going to ask for one privilege by the board. Our next agenda item is an update by our general counsel, and we've had the public here for quite a while. I'm going to ask the board if we can move that to just before member comments, and that'll give us a chance to handle the public issues first.
So moved. Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and second that we amend the agenda to move discussion item 8, which is an update by our legal counsel on rights of nature and Split Oaks, to just before member comments, which would be after item number D on the discussions. Did we take a vote on that? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. All opposed by nay. Motion carries.
Chair,
Who
can you announce the maker and the seconder of that motion, please?
was the maker? Who was the maker? Tom. And the second was Grammer.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go straight into our discussion items, for public discussion items. And as I said earlier, one of the two things that this board has done differently from any other of the CRC boards is we actually have bylaws that governs how we conduct ourselves. And with the help of the membership here and from some guidance from a prior board, we were able to set up a list of bylaws, but we also put in place a procedure for the public to get things on the agenda. And so that's what these two items are about. They followed the procedure and they're on the agenda. And the two items are, one, public bank and rural boundaries. So we're going to hear first the topic of the public bank, and I'll ask Mr. Nelson Benincourt to please come forward, make his formal presentation. Immediately following his presentation, we have comments from the board, questions and answers. He will be given, did we set a time for this presentation?
We've already had a ton of time.
3 minutes?
3 minutes. Actually, it would be better if, since I gave you the proposal, if you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
It's easier. Yeah.
Okay.
But I do want to say, for the benefit of the public, there seems to be a misconception about what a public bank is. A public bank is a wholesale bank, it's not a retail bank, okay? So it's not a place where you go and get a loan for your car, a debit card, or something like that, or purchase a house through this bank. This is a wholesale bank. It only deals with things like infrastructure, housing, these kinds of things. And it's a bank that it belongs to the public. It belongs to you. But it's called a public or a municipal bank, or you could call it what is it? A sovereign bank, because you're taking control of your own finances locally, and you're spending the money locally for local issues, okay? So I just want to clear that.
Thank you. We open the floor for questions from board members. Member Nguyen.
Hi, Mr. Benincourt. Thanks for your idea. My question is, would you be regulated by FDIC? I want him to answer.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because first of all, if the bank, which would be open with capital that the county would be putting forth to capitalize the bank, is certainly going to be more than $250,000.
Right. Who would manage the bank?
I beg your pardon?
Who would manage the deposits?
Oh, okay, it's managed by bankers.
Okay.
I think I made it clear in my proposal. The suggestion is that you're going to have a board of directors that can encompass as many as 15 people.
How many?
15.
Oh, I thought you said 50. Okay.
No, 15 people.
Okay.
You're going to have the mayor is going to have 3 people. The commissioners are going to have 2 people. The comptroller is going to select 1 person. Then they are going to go out and find a banker. Somebody actually understands a bank, or 2 people to manage the actual bank.
Okay.
Okay? This is not going to be run by politicians. This is going to be run by bankers.
Okay.
Who also have a social want to be a benefit to the society. To
Okay,
the community.
thank you.
Member Aris?
How does the bank get funded?
Well, the bank could actually begin by, the county could start as doing business as, right? Which means that the county would put its, instead of putting the money into a bank like Wells Fargo, it could put it in its own bank and use the mechanism that all banks use in the United States to make loans. Now, you're asking me how ways of funding the bank.
Right, you
It
want to
could be
establish
the-
a bank. How does it get funded?
Okay, another way of funding it is you could find money within pension funds. There are a lot of money in the pension funds that are sitting there that are not really making very much money.
So wouldn't, if I'm using
No, if I
pension
may-
funds?
let me finish.
Okay.
The other thing could be if you look at the financial comprehensive report, or what's called the CAFR, you will find that I don't know what the CAFR stands at right now for Orange County, but the CAFR will tell you that there's a lot of money that the county has in certain parts that are not being used. They're just sitting there. And just to give you a reality on this, let's say we're talking about starting a bank with $40 million, right? I mean, if you just keeping it very simple, and I'm sorry, I'm not a banker, and the idea is that if you establish a committee to study this, I have Professor Tim Canova, who's professor of law and public finance at Nova Southeastern University here in Florida. He would be willing to speak to the committee about this. By the way, he's also Mr. Jerry Smith, who has 30 years of diverse financial industry experience. He was a former banker, and is the managing director of Jerry Smith and Associates. And I also have Ms. Ellen Brown, who's an attorney. She's the author of the 3 books on public banking and founder of the Public Banking Institute, who would be willing to talk to this committee about more detailed questions like this. I am not a banker. I am not an attorney. So if I can't answer your question, I'll be honest with you. I say I can get you the answer. But the other question is, so the money that's sitting there in the CAFR, some of the pension fund money, start the bank as a doing business as, and immediately, the wealth of the county is behind the bank, right? But again, remember, the money is run, the bank is run by bankers. It's not run by politicians, which is what probably some citizens would be, would be not for it, and they're right.
Thank you. Member O'Neill?
Mr. Betancourt, you're not a banker. You don't propose to be a banker. You don't propose to be the president of this new bank, right?
No.
So questions about technicalities and FDIC insurance would better be taken up by the committee. What I have gleaned from what you've said is that instead of putting our money into Wells Fargo Bank, which we do now, and that money leaves Orange County, that we put it into a bank that's run through other banks locally, and the money stays in Orange County. It's lent out for affordable housing and things like that. Is that correct?
That's exactly what
Okay, so thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I would add to that, sir, Mr. O'Neill, I would add that is the reason why it would strengthen the community. Because, first of all, in my remarks that I made earlier today, we are looking at this big shift in the banking system in this country, which is going to impact this community and the United States as a whole. So do we sit here like a fly waiting for a windshield on the freeway, waiting for it to splatter us, or do we take, control over our destiny and do something that is going to be beneficial to our community, that is going to enable us to not be the effect of these things that are going to be happening in the future?
Yes, thank you, Member Grimer.
Thank you, Chair. First off, I want to thank Nelson for bringing this proposal here tonight. I think it's a really, really interesting idea. So if nothing else, I'm glad that we get to have this conversation. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I want to think about as a member of this commission. So I want to thank you for bringing that forward to us tonight. My question is for our attorney, Mr. Vos. Like I said, I think this is a really interesting idea. My primary, not concern, but you tell me if this should be a concern, is the legalities of such a public bank under Florida statute, or the Constitution, or anything like that. And also, when we're talking about, just about a public bank, number one, but also if we were a charter amendment that would kind of, again, force the Board of County Commissioners to make budgetary decisions, if there's any issues there running afoul of Florida law.
This is a complex issue, and local government attorneys don't deal with banking very often. I will share that with you. However, there are different parts of both the Florida statutes and the Florida Constitution that do directly deal with banking and local governments, all right? Completely separate and apart from the matters you and I have discussed previously about using a charter to control certain budgetary decisions and so on. That's a little more esoteric, I would say, when we've got some more particular matters that we have. We've got two particular areas that if a committee were to be formed, it would be the first things I would take a look at very strongly. One of them is Chapter 280, Chapter 280 of the Florida statutes, and that has to do with security for public deposits and qualified public depositories. Local governments, cities, and counties are only allowed to put their money in certain institutions, okay? And they have to meet very stringent standards. They have to meet certain security and collateral standards that not every bank does, all right? There are a lot of rigorous requirements under that statute. Then under the Florida Constitution, there is a provision in Article 7, Section 10, and that relates to pledging credit, okay? Local governments generally are not allowed to pledge the local government's credit or their taxing authority to any sort of private enterprise, all right? And so when you're in a situation where you're literally lending to yourself, which happens all the time in governments, by the way, you may have different accounts or different funds, and you may borrow one from the other in your books and so on, instead of going out to a bank and borrowing that money. But when you are lending credit out to any sort of private entity, and I understand it would not be a retail bank, so that at least goes in the right direction. But even if it were to act as when it's acting in a financing capacity, it runs into real difficult issues under that provision. I'm very hesitant. This is again, outside the normal field of what you see as local government proposals. I'm very hesitant to put the kibosh on it so early in the process, but those are some of the legal headwinds I would be evaluating early.
If I may speak to that. Yes, sir.
Member Callen?
Yeah, this is a really interesting idea. I was primarily concerned about the consumer, bank issues that some of the people brought up about young kids not being able to get a decent bank account with a minimal cost.
Yeah.
It's being a problem we have in our society, but this doesn't address that, as you mentioned. The only concern I had was I remember 30 years ago when I was a younger lawyer, the city of Orlando floated a bond issue to use the bond money for derivative buying and selling. And the county, in a bond issue, gets a lawsuit involve every bond issue to validate the bond. The court said it had no public purpose. And there's a couple other cases out there about didn't have a public purpose to borrow money, to make money. That's not a government purpose. So this is an interesting thing to look at. I would think maybe something we should look at. I don't know what the question I have for Mr. Betancourt is there a perceived hole in the market or a lack of response by the private sector to provide wholesale banking and financing, or is this just an idea that you think is something to be looked at for the future?
First of all, I go back to the needs that have been mentioned in this community: affordable housing, in transportation. If you attended the meeting at the TDT today, these issues came back over and over and over and over again. In the Workforce Housing Committee, which I've been attending. I've been attending a lot of the meetings of these committees. And these topics have been here for years and years and years. And one of the things that we're finding out in the committee here, what used to be Expansion Committee, is the fact that we're looking at about 2 million people here, in the next few years. We got 1.5 million in Orange County. Do we get ahead of the curve here, or do we wait until the stuff it's all piled up on top of us and makes things worse? So the idea is that the public bank would not get into derivatives. It's not into that at all. It would be a very practical thing. As I've explained today, it would only deal with affordable housing, transportation, maybe local lending to small businesses, or green manufacturing, which, by the way, was brought up during the TDT thing today. The small percentage of manufacturing that we have in this community. And there's no reason why we should have those things. And those are the kinds of things that the public banking would fund.
Thank you. Ms. Prophet first.
Yeah.
Before Ms. Prophet first, and then you.
So I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that I appreciate your ideas and your honesty, that you're not a banker, that you're not an attorney, that you're not a paid lobbyist. I read your letter, and I know a lot of the people that came and spoke earlier have gone. And I am an attorney while I'm not a banker either, and I like new stuff. I'm very excited. While I don't have a lot of answers to your questions, I hope that we do take a look at this and explore this. And so I just want to thank you, and I hope that we do explore this. And so thank you.
Thank you. Member Shower?
Yes. Turned it off. Sorry. We have a commissioner here. She's nice enough to be here, and she just went through the budget, and the county's budget, and she's familiar with it. And of course, a couple of us up here have been commissioners, and we understand the budget. I didn't know we had a lot of money sitting around, No, I kind of answered for you because I know what the budget does. You got a reserve. You can't touch the reserve, and you got funds that are in different enterprise funds in accounts. Those funds are dedicated for that year expenditures for the county, okay? Those surplus funds that we have that are sitting there until we use it up are bid on by the comptroller. He puts it out, and it goes to whoever is going to pay us the most money for those funds. So, yeah, it just doesn't go sit in Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo was our bank, is our bank. I'm not sure they're the bank today, but is the bank that transfers all the money back and forth. They're the administrators of the funds. But I know that the comptroller is required by law to actually go out and solicit from banks a interest rate for those funds. So I don't know where the money's going to come from unless you're suggesting that we raise taxes and put it into the affordable housing program, or the trust fund for affordable housing. Now, you may be able to correct me. I mean, that's my understanding how the county works. And they collect all the money, and if they don't get all the money, they sell tax certificates for those funds that they don't have. So they allocate all the money for the community.
Thank you. I'm going to call it. I'm going to see if we can call discussion after the post that we currently have. I have Mrs. Weinsberg, Mr.
Thank
Staccato, and Mr. O'Neill. And then I'll make some brief comments, and then I want to see if we can close comments then, please.
Thank
And
you,
we'll start
Mr.
with Mrs.
Betancourt.
Weinberg.
Thank you for bringing this idea up. After 30 years of doing marketing and advertising for retail banks, I had never heard of a municipal bank. So this afternoon, I did 4 hours of research. There is one active municipal banking enterprise in America today, and it is in North Dakota, and it is the state of North Dakota Municipal Bank. It was created in the 1930s because the bankers did not understand farming, and they wouldn't lend any money on the farm commodities, so the state of North Dakota became a municipal bank. Today, there are 2 cities in America who would like to be a municipal bank. I'm getting this from the Roosevelt Institute Municipal Banking and Overview, which was one of the many reports that I read, and it very clearly explains what this is. Okay, it's Los Angeles and it's San Francisco. They propose, this is what they propose, taking their reserves, their tourist development taxes, and their retirement funds, and creating a municipal bank of each city. They would use that money to fund whatever projects they decide instead of doing bond issues. So it could be affordable housing, it could be building roads, it could be paying retributions, it could be social programs. They have listed all the things that they want to use that money for. And then they are going to live off the interest from that money that they have lent out or they have put into programs or that they are going to go to the federal government to pay them back for on the road projects and those types of things. And their rationale is that they will be their own boss, and that also the federal government is so slow in responding to infrastructure projects, they could get all these these tent cities and those kinds of things that they're trying to get rid of. They could use the funds for that. So that's the rationale there in what's going on. I'm not sure in Florida we are as loose. They have not been approved by the state of California, and it's in litigation right now, those 2. That's what I got today from reading on the internet. So, and it's reputable organizations. But it is an interesting concept.
It's a process.
Personally, I would be really worried about putting my retirement funds in this, but that's it.
Thank you. Member Staccato, and then we will have O'Neill, and then we'll end discussion.
Thank you, Nelson, for providing this. Very interesting. It's an exciting tool that we might want to consider as a commission to entertain. One of the things that we, as a county, that we heard today earlier in this chamber was about the tourist development tax, which is kind of controversially being used on projects that are not really helping the citizens. And we might want to entertain trying to ask our commission as an organization about that, going to the legislature and changing that to allow us to use those monies for things such as housing or transportation. So this is part of the offshoot of a letter, like we've talked about producing a letter at the end of our thing. We can't necessarily do that, but we certainly produce a letter asking the commission to consider that. So I think it's a great idea. I think we should look at it.
Thank you. Member O'Neill?
Whether it is a bank, Mr. Vos, or in Florida, if that is not allowed, there is the possibility of a credit union, which is much less stringent as far as setting up a credit union. So that is a possibility. I think we've discussed a lot of the initial concerns, and this is something that a committee would ask, find out, do research, read Bev's article, things like that. And with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the CRC add the topic of creation of a public bank in Orange County to the committee dealing with workforce housing and charter cleanup.
Okay, we have a motion by Member O'Neill and a second by Member Staccato. Just a clarification. why is cleanup added to that motion? Just curiosity.
Well, that was the name of the committee, I believe. Isn't that the name that you came up with? Charter cleanup and workforce housing, maybe reversed.
Workforce housing and
Workforce housing and charter cleanup.
Would you mind restating your motion just to include a committee to set up the
Okay,
to
I
study-
got you.
To
I
study
got
the
you.
issue, and then we can discuss where to place
I'm
it.
learning how to read your mind.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you.
I move that the CRC add the topic of creation of a public bank. No, I move that the CRC create a committee to study the topic of creation of a public bank in Orange County.
And is that the second?
I second it.
Thank you. I see Member Nguyen on the queue, but before we do that, I'm going to make some comments myself. This is my first go around on the CRC, but it's not my first go around hearing the issues that we've discussed. It's been rare in any of our meetings that we've had an original idea. This is an original idea. Now, can we do it? I don't know the answer to that, but is it something we should consider, knowing the problems we have with transportation, homelessness, and affordable housing, rent subsidies? These are all issues that the county is struggling to deal with. Will this help? There's a possibility. It's not prohibited. So if it's not prohibited, then we can consider it. And we have great legal counsel. He'll steer us in the right direction. So I'm going to support the motion also. I think that it's a study issue. Mr. Bedencourt, just because we're taking it up for studying does not necessarily mean we're going to end up voting for it as a ballot initiative, but I think it warrants a discussion.
You didn't ask your question.
No, we didn't have questions yet. I'm just, okay, she's saying, what she's telling me is that I started discussing it before I asked for questions. She's actually correct. So I'm going to go in reverse. Is there any questions?
Yes.
And we have questions, and I've already gotten ahead of myself and had my response to the question, so just forgive me. We have three people, no more comments from the speaker at this point. We have Ms. Nguyen, then Member Rashi, and that's it. Yeah, we're now for discussion. We are now open for discussion on the motion.
Okay.
Ms. Nguyen, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Member Nguyen.
I just listened to our legal advisor, and he had some issues, and he as I understand, to look into it before we say we're going to look it over or do whatever. I think this is in its embryonic stage, and I think we need to think about this because if California, neither San Francisco or Los Angeles, have decided to follow and go through with this, that's the red flag. You know, some of their banks went under in both cities. So, and we're going to ask the county to put their money where we don't know where it's going. Plus, our legal counsel, Mr. Vos, has just said there's stringent rules and regulations as to where Orange County money travels. So I just need some clarity. You know, I'm a little bit slow, so I need to understand a little bit more. Okay?
We're not buying that. We're not buying that whole slow thing. I've known her a long time. Okay. We're still open for discussion on the main motion. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have my...
Mr. Rashid, I see you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, I just wanted to say that I support studying this. Why not? You know, there's some interesting, it seems that there's some experts that might be able to enlighten us on this. If anything, it might be a good education for us and something that maybe we want on the record so we could have at least look at this issue. I fully understand, you know, we may not be allowed to do this, but I think the goal of this CRC is to certainly be open to citizen ideas, and so we demonstrate that best when we at least look at a proposal.
Great. Yeah.
One other person, and that's Mr. Aris, and then we'll ask someone to call for questions. And Mr. Patilla.
Actually, I just have a comment. Instead of having a complete committee dedicated to this, maybe we could add it to Mr. Grimmer's committee.
That's what we're going to propose.
Okay, great.
That's great comment. That's everyone.
Just a very brief comment. If Mr. Rimmer is willing to take this on, I could go along with supporting the motion. I would also ask that the county comptroller and the county finance department be part of these meetings as well.
I'm going to make a different proposal. I think this is such a fringe concept. I think it deserves its own committee, and I want to recommend a separate committee and separate chair for this committee. I don't want to overburden his committee with something that's really quite brand new. It's going to take a lot of research. He's capable, so that's not the issue. But I'm going to recommend that we separate this out, and that's the primary reason I asked the motion maker to separate the motion. So I would prefer. Eric can, but it would be too much. Okay. So any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion to restate the motion? Please.
Just waiting for you to let the microphone on.
Hello. Okay. The motion on the floor is a motion to create a committee for a public bank in Orange County.
And it has a second, Mr. Patilla. Okay, we have the motion. All in favor of the motion signify by aye. Aye. No. All opposed signify by nay.
Nay.
No. Roll call vote.
Yes. And the seconder was Staccato, correct? Okay. Member Batchelor is absent. Member Jackson?
In favor.
Member De La Portilla? Yes. Member Weinsberg?
Yes.
Member Callen?
Yes.
Member Arias?
Yes.
Member Wynn?
No.
Chair Hardage?
Yes.
Vice Chair Shira?
No.
Member Bremer?
Yes.
Member Baga?
Yes.
Member O'Neill?
Yes.
Member Staccato?
Yes.
Member Adamson Prophet? Yes. Member Riley? Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. The motion passes. And the chair gets, by our bylaws, the chair gets to appoint a chair. And I'm going to ask Member Prophet if she would serve as chair. She's chair. She's accepted as chair. Our bylaws also indicate that each committee should have a minimum of 3 members, and that's up to volunteers from the board. We have one, Mr. Patilla. Anyone else would like to serve on that? We need one other member. I'm going to nominate. There you go. That's our 3rd member.
So is Member Staccato, Member Jackson, and Member De La Portilla?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then their instructions will be to get with staff and coordinate meeting schedules and do the necessary announcements, et cetera. Okay. Thank you, staff. Now we are here, our next agenda item, which is the rural boundary, and we have our presenter, Mrs. Seibel.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Commissioners, thank you very much.
And thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for listening to me this evening and giving me the opportunity to speak. I submitted to, my name is Kelly Semrad. I reside at 3111 Amalfi Drive, Orlando, Florida, 32820. I submitted to the committee on July 5th a letter of proposal regarding a rural boundary. I'm going to flip the script from a little bit from what we heard coming from the audience, because when I wrote my letter of proposal, it wasn't necessarily about controlling urban growth. It's from a different perspective of controlling rural growth, because what we see happening in the rural area is that it is blowing up in a way that was not planned for. It was not forecasted that it would be this way, and it places immense pressure on then our county's infrastructure in the urban area. When we get that pressure, we begin to look for, of course, revenue sources. Where are we going to get the revenue to pay for the roads in the rural area that weren't supposed to be needing improvement when our roads in the urban area need improvement? Where will we get the money for social services, for our school services? So all of these different services that I highlighted in the letter of proposal that I submitted. So essentially, the urban service area and the rural service area, right now what we observe is that there is the urban growth trickles into our rural service area, and it ends up costing all of us money, is what Commissioner Bonilla provided with information pertaining to one development in the area that is east of the Econ, which is the GROW, and looking at that infrastructure bill. So in my letter of proposal that I submitted, I highlighted 15 areas. I know committee work is so difficult, and so I didn't mean, I just provided 15 points just to maybe help the group come together with some ideas. I know where the research exists for those, so it's readily accessible for the committee to access. But it just began by looking at Seminole County's rural boundary, of which we heard from Commissioner Lee Constantine in his reference to rooftops don't pay. And what he was referencing was the continued cost of urban development in areas where it was not planned. And so as we begin to sprawl, it becomes a very heavy system to support. So looking at Seminole County's rural boundary, the ballot language, looking at the benefits and drawbacks that the county has incurred since its inception of the rural boundary. Looking at other counties that are using rural boundaries within the state of Florida, our region, as well as within the country. Determination of where Orange County should locate the rural boundary. Assessing whether or not it can actually serve as a cost-saving mechanism, as we anticipate that it would, and as Seminole County has identified that it does for their county. Also looking at economic advantages and disadvantages of the rural boundary, social advantages, disadvantages, financial advantages and disadvantages, as well as fiscal advantages and disadvantages of a rural boundary for county taxpayers. Environmental advantages and disadvantages, and disadvantages that a rural boundary may planning. Positive and negative impacts regarding a rural boundary and what it inflicts on Orange County's infrastructure. And then, as we've heard tonight, looking at the potential positive or negative impacts that a rural boundary may inflict on water quality, stormwater, and flood management, as well as any other additional environmental, like we heard with wildlife concerns and such. I know that Commissioner Constantine provided and said Seminole County would be available for consults to advise and to discuss their process. In the letter, I offered Save Orange County. I am the vice chair. We have our chair here this evening who could provide community engagement if the services would be needed to reach out to people that reside within rural areas, but as well as those that are concerned with smart growth and sustainable development that are residing within the urban area. That essentially encompasses the letter of proposal that I sent to you. We tried to rally people from different parts of the county to come and speak. So we had representation this evening from all districts. So I just come to you to ask to please just form the committee that can investigate, explore, and determine whether or not a rural boundary may serve any beneficial purpose to Orange County citizens. Thank you so much for your time and for your service. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your service and your presentation.
You're welcome.
We're now open for discussion from the board. We have Member Aris and Member Gramer initially, and then Chuck O'Neill. Yes, please.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I fully support the idea of creating a committee to do this. So thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Member Arias.
Thank you, Member Grimer.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to state that I'm wholly supportive of studying the idea of the rural boundaries here in Orange County. As a chapter lead of the Orlando YIMBY organization, our primary mission is housing abundance in Orange County. But we do believe that housing abundance should be located in our urban core and around our job centers and transportation hubs. It should not be in the rural sector of Orange County. And that's why I personally have stood with the people from East Orange County and advocating against urban development in the rural sector, including this past Saturday, as they continue to battle the Lake Picken North project that they've been doing it for, as we've heard, for a decade now. So I'm wholly in support of studying the issue. I would also say to the people of Orange County, both in the audience and everyone who might be watching at home, if we are going to do this, and I want to be clear, I think we should do this, we are going to have to address our transportation system. If we are going to densify our urban core, we are going to have to give people options to get around the county that does not involve a single occupancy automobile. And in 2020, this county stood firmly in shooting down the transportation initiative that would have provided a steady funding source for additional transportation options like mass transit and micromobility options such as safe biking and walking. If we are going to implement a rural boundary in Orange County, we are going to have to address our transportation system, because the more people we place in our urban core, which again, I think we should do, that's where they belong. Placing a rural boundary will not stop people from moving to Orange County. They will continue to come. They should come and move to the urban core, but we can't have people relying on only their cars as their sole source of transportation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Member Staccato.
Oh, okay. Chuck can go.
Member O'Neill.
Dr. Semrad, just to be clear, you are not proposing that we end all development in Orange County, correct?
No, sir, I am not.
You are proposing that we confine the development to an area that can be served by our current infrastructure. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And the point that I heard others make is they don't want to pay to extend infrastructure out into cow pastures, out into Bobby Beagle's neighbors. They don't want to pay for that. Is that a reasonable thing to ask for Orange County residents?
I think it is 1,000% reasonable that we are not subsidizing development in the rural area, that we are concentrating growth in the urban, and that we are not asking citizens to pick up the tab.
Okay, I think Eugene may have a motion. I'm not sure.
Thank you. Member Staccato for a motion. I'm sorry, I don't. Member Weinsberg, I see you. Before the motion, please let us speak. You're on.
Okay, I just had a question of our team. Has there previously been an initiative on the ballot for rural boundaries? I see one from 2018 that was written, but I don't see that it was ever put on the ballot.
Mr. Voss?
I believe you may be referring to the, I'm sorry for pointing, I believe you may be referring to the initiative petition that was, that Commissioner Bonilla was involved with, and that was back in 2018, and it had elements.
This is a letter from Bill Cowles to the CRC saying a rural boundary petition initiative, attachment G, but there's nothing else that I can find with it. So that never went anywhere?
That was, that was not, that did not start with the Charter Review Commission. That was through the initiative petition process, and it did not proceed through the process with enough signatures to get on the ballot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're up for a motion from Mr. Staccato.
Okay. I move that the CRC create a committee to study the topic of creating the eastern and western rural boundaries. That's it.
That's the motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Member Harris. Motion by Mr. Staccato. We open for discussion and discussion. We've had discussion.
Recognized.
I see Member Grimer.
Yeah. My thoughts on Eugene's motion is creating a new committee. I would like to volunteer our committee, I think this would fit nicely into the workforce housing discussion. So I know that's the motion on the floor, but if Eugene's open to amending it, and he's also on the committee with me, I think this would fit nicely within our scope of our work.
Let's keep the motion clean, and then we can discuss the committee later. Okay.
Because the motion was for a new committee, that's why I wanted to bring it up now.
Yes, thank you, correction.
Oh,
A committee.
So you want me to amend my motion?
If you're
to include workforce?
I mean, it's your motion.
Okay,
I mean, that
then
was my suggestion.
Okay, then I move that the CRC add a committee to study the topic of creating eastern and western rural boundaries to the workforce.
Come on, Eugene, this is your committee. You got another name, man.
We flipped it. I'm on 4 committees.
We'll ask staff to just clarify the committee.
Workforce and what's the proper language?
Workforce housing and charter cleanup.
And charter cleanup. Sorry, everyone.
Okay, is that the seconder?
Second.
Okay, yes, and one of the heads, if we're going to do this, we have, I'm going to highly recommend that we add another member to that committee just to discuss this, and I think Member Callan. He's on the board.
He's already in our committee.
You're on the committee. That would be just perfect. All right, then, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by aye.
Aye.
I vote, chair votes aye, the motion carried unanimously.
And the seconder was Member Arias, right?
Yeah. Original. Yeah.
Member O'Neill.
Second.
Well, then there was already a motion on the floor by Staccato.
I amended the motion.
Actually, it would have been better to just withdraw the motion.
If it's Member Arias, then it's the member Staccato has made the motion and Member Arias seconded it.
I seconded the original motion.
Right.
You withdrew the second, though, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I can.
You did.
The second one as well. Absolutely.
There was just one motion.
Yeah.
There was just one motion.
Just one motion.
I'm good with
It's getting late. All right, first of all, I want to thank you all. Great presentation. Now,
thank you, everyone.
Just as I discussed with the prior presentation, we voted to set up a committee. We haven't voted to place it on the ballot. So there's still plenty of work to be done. But thank you all. Great presentation, great effort. Thank you.
Member Chair Hardage, I'm sorry for interrupting, but the member who was added to the committee?
No one was added. He's already on the committee.
All right, thank you.
He's already on the committee. Just correction. Now we have a presentation from our legal staff, which was initially item number. Well, it's been moved.
Yeah, actually, Chairman, we have one other item, because I think you moved it right to the end before member comments.
Yes.
We had a quick item concerning an expansion of the scope of work for the Governmental Structure Committee. That was a request from the committee.
Okay, who's making the presentation on that?
I
Me.
believe.
Please, Mr. Tillman.
Just a very brief update. So at our June 28th meeting of the Governmental Structure Committee, we started taking on the issue of separation of powers. And separation of powers is looking at the role of the executive branch and the role of the legislative branch. Currently, the mayor serves on both the executive and the legislative. During our discussion, we got into discussion on the county attorney. The county attorney is referenced in section 402B, legal service as one of the departments that the mayor oversees. So as we were discussing, we got really into, before we got into too much detail, I looked at Councilor Vos and asked if we can continue this discussion, because that was not part of the original scope, and then he advised that we bring that matter to the full committee. So I sent you a letter on July 7th requesting that we consider, the CRC consider including the county attorney as it relates to his role of serving both the executive and the legislative branch. We can include that as part of our scope.
I have some comments on that. This is really a real stretch for this board. We're actually, in so doing, and I've gone back through the charter several times, there are no less than 8 parts of the charter that has to be changed in order to make this happen. The question is, do we want to engage in pretty much a total rewrite of the charter? And now, in addition to that, we want to add the duties of the attorney. And I think the bigger picture is that commissioners want an attorney that they can talk to as opposed to talking to the county attorney. I get that. But they don't need a charter amendment to do that. They can pretty much vote to do that. But seeing that you can go ahead and make the motion, and we'll see where it goes. But that is a real stretch for this board, and that just adds to the list of things that has to be modified. Nearly the entire charter has to be changed in order to change the structure. And what we're really doing is saying that the power structure is off balance. And what we really need, I think, just from my experience, and I've served on the board. Actually, I was the first commissioner to actually hire his own staff, answer his own phone, and create my own budget. I mean, I was elected just like the mayor. So I got to propose my budget, and he got to vote against it. But he can't really vote against my budget. It's the board that has to vote against my budget. So I see this a little bit differently, but you all know how I operate this board. I will ask the committee to do whatever this board votes for. But I just want the board to be cautious that a total rewrite of the charter and changing the county structure, which is what we're doing, is something we should not take lightly. I mean, having said that, if that's your motion, let's look for a second.
Before I make a motion, let me just say we're going to get into the sections of the charter that you referenced. You referenced them at the last meeting. Yes, I asked the clerk to send me a copy. We just did not, because the county attorney, and we're talking about separation of powers, we're talking about a checks and balances, right? So you have the county attorney, the county mayor that hires the attorney, and then the attorney works for both the mayor and works for the legislative body. And an example that I stated at the meeting, what happens if the commission, right, passes an ordinance, right, and the mayor is on the losing side of that ordinance? It's a 4-3 vote, like we see many 4-3 votes here, right? Yes. So now the mayor, and we're not talking about the current mayor, we're just talking about the concept, right? The mayor could tell the county attorney who he hires is hold off on that ordinance, drag it along. Yes. So that in order to there's an inherent flaw in our charter with that. Yeah, so in order to get a system of checks and balances, I think it's worthwhile looking at the role of the county attorney as it relates to both the executive and the legislative side. So my motion would be to add to the current scope, or add the scope of reviewing the role of the county attorney as it relates to the executive and legislative branch to the scope of the governmental structure committee.
Say that once more first.
Okay. My motion is to add the review of the county attorney specifically as it relates to the role of serving both the executive and the legislative branch of our county government. Add that review to the current scope of the governmental structure committee.
We have a motion and a second. Member Harris has seconded. Up for discussion on the board, we have several. Member Wynn, and then Member Grimer, Member Patilla, please, in that order.
No, I spoke already.
Okay, Member Wynn.
Yes. My question is, if the board would like an attorney, do they have the authority to request to the mayor, just like they ask for new staff? Can they ask for an attorney to represent them? I'm just asking a question. I don't know. No, I'm asking the question, if they would like to have an attorney, can they ask or can they petition, however they do it, in the budget, to request an attorney to represent them?
Chairman, to be honest, I would be cautious in hazarding a guess, because it would be a guess at this point. I have my own thoughts on what it would be, but that would be something I would want to explore, make sure I'm hearing what other positions are from the county attorney's office and from the mayor's office and so on. So I could give you my guess, but I don't think my guess is something you should rely on at this point.
Okay. I just didn't know because I don't know how each commissioner got a new person to work with them to make the number 3 rather than 2. And I'm just wondering if a new person was added, can a new attorney be added?
We can get the answer to that.
I don't know. I'm just wondering. I just need the answer, that's all.
Okay, Member Callan?
Attorney at one time was in the charter in 1986, the first charter. And then in 1992, somehow it was deleted. But the ballot language didn't say delete the county attorney from the charter. Then they put it as legal services. So there's really no reference to the county attorney in the charter. It says legal services. I think it's worked out pretty well, but some of the concerns that have been expressed by others and I think should be looked at. It could be a simple fix, but maybe something we just look into and talk to the county attorney's office and don't spend a lot of time on this.
Member O'Neill and then Member Patilla. Oh, he's already spoke, Patilla. You have another comment? No. Member O'Neill?
I support the motion. And in the discussion that we've had about this in the committee, Mr. Chair, we looked back at the original 1986 charter and the 1988 charter, and much of what we're discussing here is the way it was. That over the course of time, it has become this, I would hazard to say, a very powerful mayor position, and a mayor appointing his own, choosing the county attorney, and also occupying the seat that was formerly the Orange County chair of the Orange County Commission. So even though it does seem radical, it's a case of really back to the future. If you go back to 1988 and see how it was originally set up, and there was wisdom and checks and balances in that original charter.
And we'll have, let's hear 2 more comments, and then we'll call for a vote. We have Member Staccato, Member Callan. Have you spoken?
I'll just add one thing, is that in the charter, it does say under those appointments, including the legal services, that they're supposed to be confirmed by the board. So a board theoretically could say, I'm not confirming the county attorney.
That is correct.
And every appointment of senior management goes to the board for confirmation by the mayor, and the board could say, 4-3, we lost confidence, we don't want you. Now, my experience has been the county attorney's office has been outstanding at Orange County over the years. Simply outstanding with every selection they've made over the years. But there is an issue with regard to who is the master and who is the person they're serving. Okay,
and just on that comment, I'm out of order in terms of speaking, but we had that situation when I was on the board with the administrator and also with the chief of the fire department. It came up, the board voted, and we changed it. It wasn't easy. Okay, I have no other speakers on this issue. We're going to call for questions on the motion. I'll call for questions on the motion.
You want to read the motion, please?
It's just a long motion, but read it. And I am running out of gas.
The motion on the floor is to add the review of the county attorney as it relates to serving the executive and legislative branches to our county government to the scope of the governmental structure committee.
Thank you. I'm going to make one final comment. One, we can't really discuss the governmental structure without discussing the attorney, because there are no less than 8 to 10 items that have to be changed in order to make this work. I voted against the original motion, even though I know that this is something that if you do one, you kind of have to do the other. I'll vote against the motion, but I do understand the complexities of the situation. All in favor of the motion signify by aye. All opposed signify by nay.
Nay.
Chair votes nay. Vice Chair votes nay.
Nay.
Ms. Nguyen votes nay.
I
Mr. Shower. Okay, now we are at this. We have one thing on the agenda, but I would actually like to entertain a motion to adjourn. We have commissioner discussion. If there's no discussion from members. Oh, legal. Darn it.
I'm glad for you all to. I'm losing my words now too.
Yes.
I can go ahead. I'll be incredibly brief because
take your time.
Yeah, I've provided you all. What you all asked for was an update concerning two pieces of litigation that relate to Orange County Charter and really charter review matters. Those are litigation relating to two items that were put on the ballot by the 2020 Orange County Charter Review Commission. One relating to what the member refers to as the Rights of Nature Charter Amendment litigation. That is O'Neill versus Beachline South Residential LLC. The other one relating to what we'll call the Split Oak Charter Amendment litigation. I'm not going to belabor the entire matter here because we've discussed these matters previously, and these basically summarize the progress of the case up to this point, just in the last couple days or weeks. Basically, first, with regard to the Rights of Nature Amendment, the 2020 Charter Review Commission put an amendment on the ballot. That was passed by a little over 89% of the voters voting in that election. That had a title of prohibiting pollution of the Wekiva River, Economohatchee River, and all other waters of Orange County, and provided a number of rights to Orange County residents and private right of action to Orange County citizens, as well as water bodies and so on within the county with respect to pollution. At the same time, and this is the key point with regard to this one, as the legislature was considering, as the Charter Review Commission was considering that charter amendment, the legislature was also considering its own amendment to the Florida statutes. It amended the Clean Waterways Act, it amended the Environmental Protection Act with what was titled the Clean Waterways Act, and it put in a preemption. That ended up, when it went through the trial court process, being found to preempt the action that the charter amendment was seeking to accomplish. So litigation was initiated, actually, by one of your members individually, but also in his
Mr.
capacity.
O'Neill, go ahead, please.
Okay. Folks can do what they want. And also in his official capacity as president of Speak Up Wekiva, and also on behalf of a number of different Orange County affected Orange County water bodies pursuant to that charter amendment, and filed suit against a developer as well as the secretary of the FDEP. Litigation proceeded in that matter. The plaintiff in that case was seeking to have thrown out a number of EPA wetlands dredge and fill permits that had been issued under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, and a number of other sets of relief they were seeking to have found by the court, including declaring that statute I mentioned to you before unconstitutional. Went through, and ultimately the defendants in that case, the developers and the FDEP, filed a motion to dismiss. The court found that that statute I referenced, that statutory amendment, did preempt the charter amendment at issue, and that portions of it that the plaintiff argued were not preempted did not survive what we call severability analysis. You couldn't take some parts that weren't directly preempted and pull them out and keep enforcing them. So that went through. Currently, it is on appeal to the 6th DCA. Notice of appeal was filed back in August of 2022, and it's currently pending and proceeding. The initial brief on the merits was filed by the plaintiff or appellant back in February 2023. The answer briefs were just filed by the appellee defendants back in June, just recently. There was just recently
Will you tell us who the applicants and the defendants were, just for the records?
Absolutely, yeah. The appellant was the plaintiff, was Mr. O'Neill, and on behalf of Speak Up Wekiva and the various water bodies, the defendants and appellees in that case being the developer and the FDEP, Florida Department of Environmental Protection. What's that?
Who was the developer?
Sure. The developer was, the named defendant was an LLC called Beachline South Residential LLC. And so argument has been set. So as of right now, it's sitting up at the 6th DCA, waiting to see whether or not the 6th DCA is going to grant oral argument, and then if they do, there would be oral argument, and then the 6th DCA would decide at some time. I have no way of predicting when they would do that. I have a case sitting up at the 1st DCA right now on a charter amendment issue. It's sat up there for almost 2 years. So it's very difficult to predict.
Yes.
The second matter.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Why it's on appeal? Are we injuncted from enforcing it?
As of right now, the answer is yes. Yeah. As of right now, that charter amendment has no legal effect.
Okay. Member Shower?
Yes, quick question. As a jurisdiction of this Charter Study Commission, is it just strictly to the properties that are Orange County, or is it encompass all of Orange County, including the 13 municipalities?
Very good question. And we'll actually get into this exact question when we're talking about the rural boundary. So one of the unique powers of charter counties under the Florida Constitution is a county charter can specify which prevails in the event of a conflict, a county ordinance or a municipal ordinance, okay? And so there are instances, and our county charter has a number of them, there are instances where a county charter can set it up such that the county legislation, basically the county ordinances, will control over conflicting municipal ordinances. So the ability to preempt municipal authority.
The health department comes under the jurisdiction of the Orange County Commission, the whole county, not including all the municipalities. But it's by statute, I think. You know, they didn't want 13 additional health departments. You know, it was just one health department. But question I have is, let's say the city of Apopka. I got her attention. The city of Apopka, you know, or the city of Orlando doesn't have a sunset provision on the mayors. Okay. And if this board, I'm not saying they will or won't, but if this board says, hey, you know, the county commission's got a sunset, you know, on your term, and we think it should be good for the whole county, whether you're in a city or in a county, would that be in our privy to put that on the ballot?
If by sunset you mean term limits on different provisions, that's a very tricky one. And the reason I say it's tricky is typically the terms of elected officials within municipalities is not governed by their code of ordinances, it's governed by their charter. And their charter is starts out as a special act and then is amended by their own referendums in their municipalities. On that very particular issue, because that's a municipal charter issue, I am hesitant to give you a crystal clear answer one way or the other. Where you have a much clearer answer when you get into county preemption of municipal authority is when you get into county preemption of municipal regulatory authority. So when
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll move on very quickly to the other case, and this is the Split Oak litigation. This is litigation going on between Osceola County and Orange County. As you all may know, the 2020 Charter Review Commission also put a charter amendment on the ballot in 2020. It was approved by a little over 86% of the electors voting in that election. It basically prohibited the Board of County Commissioners from amending, modifying, revoking, or superseding a grant award agreement an interagency agreement, a couple different agreements between Orange County and Osceola County relating to the split there. Basically, things were set up a certain way. The way you amended it was you had both parties agree to amend it, and there had been proposed a new road as part of the entire matter. It was going to be an Osceola Parkway extension that was going to go through part of it, and the argument was, as they say, it takes two to tango. It took both to amend this this agreement or these agreements, and the charter amendment said, nope, Orange County is not allowed to approve an amendment of it. That was challenged by Osceola County. They actually filed suit before it was approved by the voters. They actually originally sued the 2020 Charter Review Commission, and the Supervisor of Elections. After it went on the ballot, the vote occurred, the Charter Review Commission and the Supervisor of Elections were dropped in that case. Basically, there is a great deal of deep legal litigation going on between the two counties on this matter. A number of different arguments raised by Osceola County trying to invalidate the charter amendment, both on your most typical line of attack on a charter amendment, saying that the ballot summary was misleading to the voters. That's always your most common line of attack, as well as a number of different attacks and arguments basically saying this is affecting property primarily in Osceola County, not Orange. The county charter has no business doing that, no authority to do that, and so on. The county has defended that case vigorously thus far, by all appearances. At this point, the case is sitting, it's still at the trial court level. It is sitting with dueling motions for final summary judgment before the court. There is also a separate motion for partial summary judgment by Osceola County directly challenging just the ballot language.
And
okay?
what does that mean in civilian language?
Sure. So we say motions for final summary judgment. Both sides are essentially saying we don't argue about any of the facts. All right, we all basically agree on the facts, but we disagree about the law. And here's why we think we're right, Judge, and here's why we think we're right, Judge. And then they don't have to have a trial, usually. They don't have to have a trial. The judge looks at it all and decides basically who's right on the law. All right. As I mentioned, separate from all those different arguments going on, Osceola County has a separate motion just attacking the ballot summary. If the ballot summary is found to be misleading or non-compliant with 101.161 Florida statutes, whole thing goes out anyways. So as of right now, that is where that case sits. I have no personal knowledge of where it may go afterwards, what the appetite is for further litigation on it. But if the trial court were to rule on that and it was decided that the folks who lose that, the county that loses that, want to appeal it, it would be going to the 6th DCA as well. And because of the complex legal issues, I would speculate that it would take a fair amount of...
And during that period, the ballot initiative is null and void?
No. As of right now, so it depends on who wins.
Right now, while it's in court?
As of right now, so all legislative enactments or charter amendments in this instance are entitled to a presumption of legality, okay? Which means with some statutory exceptions that were just passed this session, once an ordinance is passed or a charter amendment is put into effect and so on, it is legal even if someone files a court challenge saying it's illegal. So as of right now, the court has not ruled as to the legality of that charter amendment. So as of right now, that charter amendment has the full force of law.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Shower, Vice Chair Shower, and Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Staccato, and then I'm going to ask someone to call for questions. Mr. Shower first. He's already spoken. He's good.
Kind of gonna make a motion to adjourn, but go ahead, I'll wait.
Okay. Now, I'm going to call Mr. O'Neill and then Mr. Staccato, but I'm going to encourage you that there's already a motion.
Mr. Vos, just as far as the status of the charter amendment that was passed by 89%, it exists as 704.1 in the municipal code, correct?
It is physically there in the charter, yes.
It is physically there, and it would take not a statute, but it would take a charter amendment to remove that from the charter. Is that correct, sir?
I would be speculating as to what the 6DCA ends up ordering and what is ordered upon remand down to the trial court. And what I mean by that is I could only make guesses as to what the 6DCA thought was the right remedy. At bare minimum, if they sustain saying it was preempted, they say, no, it's completely unenforceable, preempted. It's as if it's not there. In some instances, court may order it stricken, that it is, in fact, not there. That tends to come, that often comes in situations where it's found that the ballot summary was misleading or deceptive or so on. As you can imagine, they invalidate that because they argue it only passed because of the misstatement or what have you. That is not necessarily the only reason. Again, I would be speculating as to what the 6DCA might order as relief in that case.
Okay, but just to be clear, the ballot summary was not ruled to be misleading, right? Correct? The defendants in this case have stated that this is a statement of policy of Orange County, and that policy exists in our charter. And as such, as a statement by 89% of the people, it has influenced some of the votes for the Board of County Commissioners in regards to wetlands and other things. So when you say it was preempted and not severable, I just want to be perfectly clear that this is still part of our charter, and it's recognized as the policy, at least by the defendants. They're not asking for this to be stricken from the Orange County Charter.
Again, I could not. I'd be speculating as to what the 6DCA ultimately ends up.
Well, fortunately,
order.
you're not on the 6DCA, right? So we'll see what happens, right? Okay.
Thank you. Can I entertain a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Vice Chair Shara, seconded by Member Nguyen. All in favor, please signify by aye. We are so adjourned. Great meeting, board. Great meeting.